Book 1, the Book of Beginnings. Canto 4, the Secret Knowledge. It's a very, very important canto. It has in kernel everything. It is really the secret knowledge, as the name is clearly saying. And this particular canto, has its reverberations in the Life Divine and in several other works of Sri Aurobindo. So, the secret knowledge. On a height he stood that looked towards greater heights. Who stood on these heights? So Ashwapati, of course, you can see he's had his realization, his experience of oneness, what you call as, what is the Sanskrit word? Well, the English is a realization, the cosmic realization, the universality of his being. So you can say the realization of Satchidananda. So, on a height he stood that looked towards greater heights, our early approaches to the infinite, our sunrise splendors on a marvelous verge, while lingers yet unseen this glorious sun. So this glorious sun here is the reference to the supramental sun. So, while lingers yet unseen the glorious sun, what now we see is a shadow of what must come. The earth's uplook to a remote unknown is a preface only of the epic climb of human soul from its flat earthly state to the discovery of a greater self and the far gleam of an eternal light. This world is a beginning and a base where life and mind erect their structured dreams. An unborn power must build reality. A death-bound littleness is not all we are. So this is important. Suddenly this line where Sri Aurobindo is clearly stating the knowledge, the secret knowledge. What is the secret knowledge? That this death-bound littleness is not all we are. He's hinting that human destiny is far greater and human possibility and potentiality is far greater than what we now experience as this death-bound littleness, this mortality. So, this one line suddenly comes, a death-bound littleness is not all we are, immortal are forgotten vastnesses. Immortal are forgotten vastnesses await discovery in our summit selves. So this forgotten vastness is immortal and awaits discovery in what self? In our summit self, the highest self of our being. Unmeasured breadths and depths of being are ours. Unmeasured breadths and depths of being are ours. So you could just see that when this secret knowledge is revealed, if we could really understand and also the mind could accept this and the emotions could have this faith and the body cell could live in this vibration of this secret knowledge that Sri Aurobindo here is revealing, you can imagine what it can already do to prepare the consciousness for this transformation. Of course, the preparation of this consciousness, of our consciousness, takes a long time because there are different parts of our being. So the mind might accept, but the subconscious may not. There may be some part of us that still has doubts. There may be other parts that are warring with the others. So it takes a long time to unify the entire being. But here is the knowledge. Unmeasured breadths and depths of being are ours, akin to the ineffable secrecy, mystic, eternal, in unrealized time. So these unmeasured breadths and depths are mystic and eternal in unrealized time. They have not as yet been realized in time. What is the Kala? So that's what Sri Aurobindo writes in the first chapter of Synthesis of Yoga. You might have a great aspiration, but if you don't have the necessary utsaha, that is the effort and the persistence, then that aspiration will fail. And then there is always the agency of time. Everything has a particular measure and a particular time for its full development and maturity. So you cannot push time. You have to go by that. You have to give things time. If you rush into things, either you will be prematurely disappointed or you will become an asura. What is an asura? An egoistic being, who has these notions of self-aggrandizement and who is governed by the ego, So, just to the four aids. Then there's the agency of, but it's very important here, he's making a reference to it. Page is this? 47. You have to go to the next, the teacher, of course, the guru. So the four aids, one is the guru, the teacher. Here the teacher can be even the inner guide, the Veda. Once that, the outer teacher may help you to discover the inner Veda. But till that opens, the instrumentation of the guru is required. For anything. If you want to learn tennis, you need a coach. If you want to learn riding, you need an instructor. Same way, if you want to learn yoga, you need a teacher. Then, second is Shastra, which is knowledge. Third is Utsaha, effort. And the fourth is Kala, which is time. So these are the four aids. So Shastra is the knowledge of the truths, the principles, powers and processes that govern the realization. Shastra. And then, of course, the rest of the whole chapter explains each one in great detail and how it functions and so on and so forth. But here he's talking about the fourth aid, which is Kala. So, unmeasured breadths and depths of being are ours, akin to the ineffable secrecy. Mystic, eternal in unrealized time. Neighbors of heaven are nature's altitudes. To these high-peaked dominions, sealed to our search, too far from surface nature's postal routes, too lofty for our mortal lives to breathe, deep in us, a forgotten kinship points, and a faint voice of ecstasy and prayer calls to those lucent lost immensities. Even when we fail to look into our souls or lie embedded in earthly consciousness, still have we paths that grow towards the light. Yet are there luminous tracks in heaven serene, and Eldorados of splendor and ecstasy, and temples to the Godhead none can see. So even when we lose touch with our inner consciousness and our psychic being or our deepest soul, even then when we are immersed in outer life and the earthly life, still, he says, unknown to the outer being, still have we paths that grow towards the light. So we are unconscious of those paths. We are involved in the outer exterior world, and yet there are parts in us that keep growing towards the light. Still have we paths that grow towards the light. Yet are there luminous tracks in heaven serene, and Eldorados of splendor and ecstasy, and temples to the Godhead none can see. A shapeless memory lingers in us still, and sometimes when our sight is turned within, earth's ignorant veil is lifted from our eyes. There is a short, miraculous escape. This narrow fringe of clamped experience we leave behind, meted to us as life. Our little walks are insufficient reach. Our souls can visit in great lonely hours, still regions of imperishable light, all-seeing eagle peaks of silent power, and moon-flame oceans of swift fathomless bliss, and calm immensities of spirit space. So, this is the revelation. This is the psychological revelation that Sri Aurobindo is revealing here through the voice of Ashwapati. And what he's saying is that he's actually explaining the whole psycho-spiritual condition of man. That what is our destiny? What lies beneath the surface of human nature? What lies beneath our mind and our vital and our body and our physical consciousness? And yet he says that even though we are immersed in the outer world, there's a particular lovely words he used, or lie embedded in earthly consciousness, even though we are embedded, meaning in earthly consciousness, still have we paths that grow towards the light. So this is not only for those who are doing yoga. Everybody has this. Otherwise there would be no sense, no? How is it that suddenly some people are awakened to the inner life through tragic circumstances, through illness, through some sort of shock, outer shock of, no, some, in the middle I'm saying. There are others who are awakened because of an inner aspiration, of some awakening, or the influence of another person, or of a guru, of one's parents, or whatever it might be. But what I'm trying to say is that everybody, even the most ordinary person, can suddenly awaken to this inner life. And that is why they can, because there are parts in them that are unknown to them, that are still growing towards this light, because this is the secret knowledge, that everybody is in a state of evolution. What is this? What he says, a death-bound littleness is not all we are. Immortal are forgotten vastnesses, await discovery in our summit selves. Unmeasured breadths and depths of being are ours, akin to the ineffable secrecy. Mystic, eternal in unrealized time. So time is going to reveal it. The time has its own role. You see, if you saw the Mahabharata, and if you see Vyasa's depiction, what importance he gives to time. In fact, time is the narrator there. So time has a very important place in yoga or in spiritual development or in any development for that matter. There is a movement, there is a harmony, and if you push too hard, you can break the vessel. That is why the mother always said that go according to each one's nature. Don't push, don't become coercive or suppressive, or she would always say grow harmoniously. If there are certain parts of you that are still to grow, let them come to their full fruition. Don't push them or suppress them. That's why this suppression and coercion is a very difficult and important aspect of yoga, especially in the ashram. Many people went to her and she advised that for your yogic development, she said, you must marry. And she even said, you marry this one and that one. Why? Because you grow through that also. You understand? There is nothing that is un-yogic. But for each person, it's a different path. So for you it might be one, for the other person she says just the opposite. She says you cannot marry. So the other person is shocked. Mother, you just allowed that one. He says yes, that's all right, but not for you. Of course, that time they had the great luxury of going to the mother physically and asking her advice. Now we don't have it, we have to listen to our inner voice. So here we are. A shapeless memory lingers in us still, and sometimes when our sight is turned within, earth's ignorant veil is lifted from our eyes. There is a short miraculous escape. So when earth's ignorant veil, it's a kind of we are in this Maya. That is the real meaning of Maya. What is Maya? This earth's ignorant veil. This illusion that, only this is real, that this is reality and there's nothing else. So when this illusion of the fact that you are only what you are, a half animal, half human being, when that illusion is lifted, then only can you see these Eldorados of whatever, the greater immensities, deeper immensities that lie behind. So earth's ignorant veil is lifted from our eyes. There is a short miraculous escape. Some of you, all of us have had this experience once in a while of maybe sometimes being in nature, sometimes in a place that has that very, very high vibration, that you're lifted out of your self. You have this escape to something very deep and very vast. So that is the short miraculous escape he's talking about. But this is the ordinary human condition. We don't have it. Ordinary human beings have them as short miraculous escapes. Those who are realized, like Sri Aurobindo and Ashwapati, have it constantly. So, earth's ignorant veil is lifted from our eyes. There is a short miraculous escape. This narrow fringe of clamped experience we leave behind, meted to us as life. So that when this miraculous escape happens, we leave behind this narrow fringe of clamped experience. We leave behind, meted to us as life, our little walks, our insufficient reach. Our souls can visit in great lonely hours, still regions of imperishable light, all-seeing eagle peaks of silent power and moon-flame oceans of swift fathomless bliss and calm immensities of spirit space, with a capital S, in the unfolding process of the self. Sometimes the inexpressible mystery elects a human vessel of descent. A breath comes down from a supernal air, a presence is born, a guiding light awakes, a stillness falls upon the instruments, fixed, motionless, like a marble monument, stone calm. The body is a pedestal supporting a figure of eternal peace. So sometimes the inexpressible mystery elects a human vessel for descent. So these are the special descents, what you call as avatars and vibhutis. Sometimes it comes specially down like Sri Aurobindo and so on, Vivekananda, Napoleon in some way, and many, many others. So, sometimes the inexpressible mystery elects a human vessel of descent, a breath comes down from a supernal air, a presence is born, a guiding light awakes, a stillness falls upon the instruments, fixed, motionless like a marble monument, stone calm, the body is a pedestal supporting a figure of eternal peace, or a revealing force sweeps blazing in out of some vast superior continent. Knowledge breaks through, trailing its radiant seas, and nature trembles with the power, the flame. A greater personality sometimes possesses us, which yet we know is ours, or we adore the master of our souls. Then the small bodily ego thins and falls, no more insisting on its separate self, losing the punctilio of its separate birth. It leaves us one with nature and with God. So this is a wonderful description of how the ego becomes sublimated and leaves and leaves us. So you just read this very, very important lines. Out of some vast superior continent, knowledge breaks through, trailing its radiant seas, and nature trembles with the power, the flame. A greater personality with a capital P sometimes possesses us, which yet we know is ours, or we adore the master of our souls. Then the small bodily ego thins and falls, no more insisting on its separate self, losing the punctilio of its separate birth. It leaves us one with nature and with God. In moments when the inner lamps are lit and the life's cherished guests are left outside, our spirit sits alone and speaks to its gulfs. A wider consciousness opens then its doors, invading from spiritual silences. A ray of the timeless glory stoops a while to commune with our seized, illumined clay, and leaves its huge white stamp upon our lives. So when this ego disappears and is thinned, and we become one with nature and with God, then a wider consciousness opens its doors to us, invading us from spiritual silences. A ray of the timeless glory stoops into us, stoops a while to commune with our seized, illumined clay, which is seized already. So, and leaves its huge white stamp upon our lives. In the oblivious field of mortal mind, revealed to the closed prophet's eyes of trance, or in some deep internal solitude, witnessed by a strange immaterial sense, the signals of eternity appear. So, in the oblivious field of mortal mind, revealed to the closed prophet eyes of trance, or in some deep internal solitude, witnessed by a strange immaterial sense, the signals of eternity appear. The truth mind could not know unveils its face. We hear what mortal ears have never heard. We feel what earthly sense has never felt. We love what common hearts repel and dread. Our minds hush to a bright omniscient. A voice calls from the chambers of the soul. We meet the ecstasy of the Godhead's touch in golden privacies of immortal fire. These signs are native to a larger self. So these are the signs that are native, natural to the larger self. So this is the wonderful discovery. This is the complete description, you can say almost, the path, the way towards this experience that Sri Aurobindo is leading us to. So a voice calls from the chambers of the soul. We meet the ecstasy of the Godhead's touch in golden privacies of immortal fire. These signs are native to a larger self that lives within us by ourselves unseen. So reference back to what we talked about earlier. That lives within us by ourselves unseen. By which self? The outer self, unseen by us, unseen by our mind, unseen by our emotions, unseen by the physical consciousness, but it lives within. So we love this, a voice that calls from the chambers of the soul. We meet the ecstasy of the Godhead's touch in golden privacies of immortal fire in this heart, in the psychic being. These signs are native to a larger self that lives within us by ourselves unseen. Only sometimes a holier influence comes. A tide of mightier surgings bears our lives, and a diviner presence moves the soul. Or through the earthly coverings, something breaks. A grace and a beauty of spiritual light, the murmuring tongue of a celestial fire, ourself and a high stranger whom we feel. It is and acts unseen, as if it were not. It follows the line of sempiternal birth. What does sempiternal birth mean? Everlasting. So it follows the line. What follows the line? A diviner presence, yes. This divine presence, and that guides us. It follows the line. It is the psychic being that what he's talking about, the divine presence. Actually doesn't name it here, but that follows the line means from birth to birth. Sempiternal, from the earliest births. So, yet seems to perish with its mortal frame. So, obviously, though it seems to perish, everlasting birth, unchanging. That is the essence of the divine presence. It is unchanging, everlasting, and though it seems to, one feels that when the body dies, everything goes, but it looks like that to the outer eye, that once you die, everything disappears. But actually this divine presence continues from birth to birth, from life to life, and continues and is there everlastingly. So this is the divine presence that Ashwapati has experienced here. He is feeling it. He is constantly aware of it. That is the experience. That is why it's called, after the yoga of the soul, the secret knowledge. This is what he discovers. Our soul and Atma are two different words, but Atma is the psychic being. Jivatma is the soul, which is the universal divine presence. The divine presence individualized is called the psychic being or the Atman. And the divine presence universalized is called the Jivatman or the soul. So this is the Atman. This is the psychic being. So great, patient, calm, it sees the centuries pass, awaiting centuries pass, so birth after birth. Don't imagine this is going to happen in 6 months. Awaiting the slow miracle of our change, in the sure, deliberate process of world force, and the long march of all-revealing time. It doesn't mean that one cannot achieve it in this life. It just means that the preparation, if one had to achieve it in this life, must have gone on for centuries, for many, many hundreds of lives. So it depends on the soul's age, the soul's time. So every soul is born of a different time and age. So some souls are young souls who are still to experience something like this, and you see them around you. No concept of anything higher and deeper. And there are souls who have it and yet are not exactly consciously doing a spiritual practice, but they sense it, they have it, and some sort of preparation is going on in them. So every soul, and then there are those who are completely consecrated, and those, of course, who are self-realized. So basically, like human beings, every soul, it has its own age. The age of a soul is not incumbent on the age of the body. You could have a very, very old and deep and realized soul in a 4-year-old child. And you could have a very new soul in an old man. So These are things you have to experience. That's why sometimes when we meet certain people, we say, oh, this is a very old soul. You know the saying? So that is the reason. Yet seems to perish with its mortal frame, assured of the apocalypse to be. What is this in reference to? Assured of the apocalypse to be. It reckons not the moments and the hours, great, patient, calm. It sees the centuries pass, awaiting the slow miracle of our change. So assured of the apocalypse. What is the meaning of the word apocalypse in this sense, in this line? Apocalypse is obviously something that it's a renewal and destruction of, so it's a transformation here, I think it's meaning, yeah. So assured of the transformation of the human race, okay? Assured of the apocalypse to be, it reckons not the moments and the hours. Who reckons not the moments and the hours? The divine presence that is lodged in our being, our inner self, our larger self, but which we are not aware of. But here, of course, Ashwapati has become totally conscious of that and is living in it. So, assured of the apocalypse to be, it reckons not moments and the hours, great, patient, calm, it sees the centuries pass. So that's how the divine presence in us, is. It is great, it is patient, it is calm, it sees the centuries pass, awaiting the slow miracle of our change. In the sure, deliberate process of world force and the long march of all revealing time, it is the origin and the master clue, a silence overhead, an inner voice, a living image seated in the heart, an unwalled wideness and a fathomless point, the truth of all these cryptic shows in space, the real towards which our strivings move, the secret grandiose meaning of our lives. So this is what the psychic presence and the divine presence is. It is the origin and master clue. It is the silence overhead. It is the inner voice. It is the living image seated in the heart, and so on. The real towards which our strivings move, the secret grandiose meaning of our lives, a treasure of honey in the combs of God, a splendor burning in a tenebrous cloak. It is our glory of the flame of God, our golden fountain of the world's delight, an immortality cowled in the cape of death. So now you know what is immortal in us is the divine presence, the psychic presence. And so that's why it says an immortality cowled in the cape of death, a splendor burning in a tenebrous cloak. Look at the wonderful way, the treasure of honey in the combs of God, a splendor burning in a tenebrous cloak. It is our glory of the flame of God, our golden fountain of the world's delight, an immortality cowled in the cape of death, the shape of our unborn divinity. So this, when the psychic being comes completely forward and our nature is completely psychicized, then this takes the shape of the unborn divinity. It divinizes the mind, it divinizes the body, it divinizes the emotional and vital self, and it is the psychic being then that assumes the new body. And the human mortality is changed to an immortality. So the agency of immortality is the psychic being. And that is why this discovery of the psychic presence and the divine presence in ourselves, which the realization, it's the first of the triple transformations. And if you've read Letters on Yoga, the chapter on the triple transformation, it is the psychic transformation. Of course, in this chapter, there is an allusion to both the psychic and the spiritual in this chapter, because it's poetry. So here Ashwapati has both realized the psychic self, the psychic being the Atman, and the Jivatman, and the spiritual self. Both these experiences are talked about here. That's why it's called the secret knowledge. But the importance of the word secret knowledge is because in the Vedas, the Upanishads, even in the Gita and all our scriptures afterwards, the psychic element for divinization, that particular yoga was lost. Instead, we went into the Maya, yoga Maya of the illusion of the world and the illusion of the body. So we went more into the Shankara path for the last couple of thousand years. And this knowledge that actually we are here, the divine is consciously seated in us, and that we can realize the divine and immortalize us, our human nature, that knowledge was lost in the preceding years over the last 3,000-4,000 years. So that is why Sri Aurobindo is naming this chapter the secret knowledge. It has come back into this yoga, into life, because if you read the Patanjali's yoga, you read, generally you talk, what is the aim of our Hindu religion? It's moksha, is it not? What is moksha? So moksha is to not to come back. So to leave, to enter into that oversoul, into the spiritual self, and stay there. So moksha is when you have no need, the soul does not need to come back for experience. But it does not mean divinization. Because if you have got moksha, then how do you divinize the body and the mind and the emotional being? So this yoga is very different from traditional yoga. That's why this is called the secret knowledge, this chapter. One has to completely, understand that, because otherwise you will miss the point. This yoga is for those who have a feeling that even matter and spirit, so-called, is one. There is no difference. So you don't need to escape from anything, because the divine is here in the stone, in our body, in our emotions, in our mind, but the outer being of the ego shell of our human nature is unable to perceive it. So one has to go through a process like you do in any study. If you want to become a brilliant scientist, you have to be rigorous about your method. It's like a yoga. So in the same way, this is the yoga of self, of realizing the self, but in the body. The only difference is the ultimate aim. That the processes actually for both are very similar. But the ultimate aim is what differentiates one from the other. So is that clear? So the Vedas did not talk about it. The Vedas had it in a veiled form. It is there in the Vedas in a veiled form, but it was not amplified or discussed. If you read the Vedas, you will only get some glimpses of it. But after the Vedas, it was lost.
Would you say it like this, that it was picked up in a way of taking it to moksha?
Yeah, so there were so many other religions, and there was Buddha, there was Shankara, so I think some aspects of the Vedas were amplified and others were not. But in the 20th, 21st century, everybody, strangely enough, intuitively, even all our yogis and teachers and even the West and practitioners have a sense that, this is the intuitive way forward. Very few people are now, well, no, they are, I suppose. They are. People do still believe that, there is nothing in the body. The body or the human being is only there to realize the self. So they do not give importance or credence to the psychic being. The psychic being or the divine self, which is the Atman, is the same. In the old yoga also, Atman had to meet the Jivatman. Here also, Atman and Jivatman both have to become one. But the aim is different, and therefore the process is different. So I think you'll have to read a little bit more to understand this if you want to, but in essence, this is it. It is the origin and the master clue, a silence overhead and inner voice, a living image seated in the heart, an unwalled wideness and a fathomless point, the truth of all these cryptic shows in space, the real towards which our strivings move, the secret grandiose meaning of our lives, a treasure of honey in the combs of God, a splendor burning in a tenebrous cloak. It is our glory of the flame of God, our golden fountain of the world's delight, an immortality cowled in the cape of death, the shape of our unborn divinity. It guards for us our fate in depths within, where it sleeps the eternal seed of transient things. Always we hear in us a magic key, concealed in life's hermetic envelope, a burning witness in the sanctuary, regards through time and the blind walls of form. A timeless light is in his hidden eyes. He sees the secret things no words can speak, and knows the goal of the unconscious world and the heart of the mystery of the journeying years. So the last few lines again explain the same idea. Always we hear in us a magic key, concealed in life's hermetic envelope, a burning witness in the sanctuary. A burning witness is the divine presence or the psychic presence in the sanctuary of the heart of the inner being, regards through time and the blind walls of form. Blind walls of form is the body. A timeless light is in his hidden eyes. He sees the secret things no words can speak, and knows the goal of the unconscious world and the heart of the mystery of the journeying years. But all is screened, subliminal, mystical. It needs the intuitive heart, the inward turn. It needs the power of a spiritual gaze. Else to our waking minds, small moment look, a goalless voyage seems our dubious course. Some chance has settled or hazarded some will, or a necessity without aim or cause, unwillingly compelled to emerge and be. So this is quite clear. To the outer being and to our waking minds, outer minds, moments look, it seems that life seems to be a goalless voyage which has a dubious course and has a very uncertain aim. Some chance has settled or hazarded some will, or a necessity without aim or cause, unwillingly compelled to emerge and be in this dense field where nothing is plain or sure. Our very being seems to us questionable. Our life, a vague experiment. The soul, a flickering light in a strange, ignorant world. The earth, a brute, mechanic accident. A net of death in which by chance we live. So this is how the outer mind and the outer being perceives reality, and this is also real. So it's not that this is unreal, it's just that it's not all of reality. So the earth, a brute mechanic accident, a net of death in which by chance we live. All we have learned appears a doubtful guess. Now suppose we die. Suppose all of us die tomorrow. And none of us have realized the divine presence and the psychic self or had self-realization. What will happen to us? What will be the actual experience that, we will go through? Have you thought about that? So if you die without realization, he's saying we are not realizers yet. So, and you think about this, that if you die without realizing the self, how will you know who you are? And how will you continue your journey? And who will know? So what will happen? So then for yourself, actually this is true. The earth is a brute mechanic accident for all of us, a net of death in which by chance we live. So if we think that after death, who are you identified?
With my body.
Exactly. So what is your experience? Therefore, the difference between a person who has achieved self-realization and he gives up his body, and a person who has not received self-realization and he giving up his body. So what is the difference between the two? So the body gives you up. Okay, what else? I'm just asking these questions because these are important questions. I think about them every day. So what am I living for?
Sentence you said, we don't give up the body gives us up. It's also we should hear about someone who's attained Siddhi. He can actually by dhyana give up his body.
Yeah, Ichha Mrityu.
Decides when I am going to give up.
That's what we hear of all the people who are realizing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know.
Realization.
So it's a conscious death. That means that the time has come for the passage for you to go through, but you are not identified with your body. You are completely one with your psychic being or your psychic presence or your soul or your Atman, and therefore when you give up your body, you are identified and it transfers, so there's no death for you. So one who is realized, there is no death. Death doesn't exist. Death is only there for the unconscious. Only when you don't know, you die. When you know, you can't die. It is then it's like when you leaving your clothes behind or leaving an outer garment behind and say, okay, this body is now served me and my journey is now moving forward. These clothes have to now be thrown away because they are no longer necessary for my next, and I'm aware of where I'm going and who and what is happening, completely aware. So that is the difference. I'm just asking you to think of the difference because otherwise, these are things we don't often ask ourselves, but this is what he's talking about here, Ashwapati. So therefore, this becomes even more important, what we are reading, because here the process of divinization of the body, of the mind, of the soul, of the whole being, the coming forward of the psychic presence, the whole spiritual process is given clearly. And the yogic, and therefore you understand the reason or the importance of this. Otherwise, why are we reading this? Of what?
Become aware of our being, aware of our journey, about where we want to go, our own sadhana.
Okay. So the earth, a brute mechanic accident, a net of death in which by chance we live. So this net of death is not the experience of a self-realized person. There is no net of death. So a net of death, it is only for those who are unconscious of their true identity,
Most of us are.
which are 99% of all of us. A net of death in which by chance we live. All we have learned appears a doubtful guess. The achievement done, a passage or a phase, whose further end is hidden from our sight, a chance happening or a fortuitous fate. Out of the unknown we move to the unknown. Out of the unknown we've come, and we move back to the unknown. Ever surround our brief existence here, grey shadows of unanswered questionings, the dark, inconscient, signless mysteries stand up unsolved behind fate's starting line, an aspiration in the night's profound, seed of a perishing body and half-lit mind, uplifts its lonely tongue of conscious fire towards an undying light forever lost. Only it hears, sole echo of its call, the dim reply in man's unknowing heart, and meets, not understanding why it came or for what reason is the suffering here. God's sanction to the paradox of life and the riddle of the immortal's birth in time. Right? Along a path of eons serpentine, in the coiled blackness of her nascent course, the earth goddess toils across the sands of time. A being is in her whom she hopes to know. A word speaks to her heart she cannot hear. A fate compels whose form she cannot see. In her unconscious orbit, through the void, out of her mindless depths, she strives to rise, a perilous life, her gain, a struggling joy. So, the earth, in the coiled blackness of her nascent course, the earth goddess toils across the sands of time. So what does he mean here, the earth goddess here? The planet Earth, the goddess, obviously there is a power that animates earth, what you call as Prakriti, or you call it, the earth goddess. So the earth goddess is a being in her whom she hopes to know. Even the earth is unconscious of its own being, because if the earth was conscious of its being, then so would we be conscious, because we are part of that earth. So that is the material inconscience that is slowly waking to consciousness. So here it's a reference to that. Along a path of eon serpentine, in the coiled blackness of her nascent course, the earth goddess, you can see the whole of the galaxy and the universe, and the movement of the earth and the planet. So the earth goddess, and there's the presence of the divinity that informs that planet, is still enmeshed in the nascent world. That means it's still semi-conscious or half-conscious. So along a path of eon serpentine, in the coiled blackness of her nascent course, the earth goddess toils across the sands of time. A being in her whom she hopes to know. A word speaks to her heart she cannot hear. A fate compels whose form she cannot see. In her unconscious orbit. See the notice? In her unconscious orbit. So even in a sense, the whole universal creation is still unconscious in it hasn't reached full consciousness and full divinity. So therefore we are also part of that. So it's not just an individual formation that we are unconscious. It is even all of matter that is unconscious. That is why we are unconscious. We are made of the same matter as Mother Earth or as the goddess Earth. Therefore, see the universal vision that and the kind of wideness of Sri Aurobindo's thought, that he can present this just not as a personal yoga, but as a universal yoga of the entire earth, of the entire galaxy, in fact, the universe. So, here, therefore, you get that hint. So, a fate compels whose form she cannot see. In her unconscious orbit through the void, out of her mindless depth she strives to rise. Mindless depth. So, mind itself is still a thought. Then, when she strives to rise, a perilous life her gain. Yeah, a struggling joy. So, her gain is a perilous life, her gain a struggling joy. So here all mind, life, body, mental, vital, physical. A thought that can conceive but hardly knows arises slowly in her and creates the idea, the speech that labels more than it lights. So it's very much like what we do. We label everything, but the actual knowledge of what we are labeling is less. It labels more than it lights. The same for the earth goddess, same for the universal consciousness. Because same for this thought, this mind of ours is able to label, organize and dissect. It is not able to know completely because it is the earth mind, which is, we are also part of the earth mind. And the earth mind itself is still unconscious, which drives the entire universe and the galaxy. So this is what he's saying here. A thought that can conceive but hardly knows arises slowly in her and creates the idea, the speech that labels more than it lights. A trembling gladness that is less than bliss invades from all this beauty that must die. Alarmed by the sorrow dragging at her feet, and conscious of the high things not yet won, ever she nurses in her sleepless breast an inward urge that takes from her rest and peace. So all this is a reference to the earth goddess. Ever she nurses in her sleepless breast an inward urge that takes from her rest and peace. Ignorant and weary and invincible, she seeks through the soul's war and quivering pain the pure perfection her marred nature needs, a breath of Godhead on her stone and mire, a faith she craves that can survive defeat, the sweetness of a love that knows not death, the radiance of a truth forever sure. A light grows in her, she assumes a voice, her state she learns to read and the act she has done. But the one needed truth eludes her grasp, herself in all of which she is the sign. An inarticulate whisper drives her steps, of which she feels the force but not the sense. A few rare intimations come as guides. Immense divining flashes cleave her brain, and sometimes in her hours of dream and muse, the truth that she has missed looks out on her, as if far off and yet within her soul. A change comes near that flees from her surmise, and ever postponed compels attempt and hope, yet seems too great for mortal hope to dare. A vision meets her of supernal powers that draw her as if mighty kinsmen lost, approaching with a strange great luminous gaze. Then is she moved to all that she is not, and stretches arms to what was never hers, outreaching arms to the unconscious voice. Passionate she prays to invisible forms of gods, soliciting from dumb fate and toiling time what most she needs, what most exceeds her scope. A mind unvisited by illusion's gleams, a will expressive of soul's deity, a strength not forced to stumble by its speed, a joy that drags not sorrow as its shade. For these she yearns and feels them destined hers. Heaven's privilege she claims as her own right. Just is her claim the all-witnessing gods approve. Clear in a greater light that reason owns. Our intuitions are its title deeds. Our souls accept what our blind thoughts refuse. So here again goes back to the individual. So he draws a comparison from earth nature, the goddess earth, to the universe, to the galaxy, to the way that mind is formed in its unconscious state and how it comes through and so on, and how the earth mother and the entire universe itself has to go through from inconscient to this, to various stages of consciousness, and then he draws the parallel to the human consciousness. it is really difficult to completely understand what he's writing. It's not possible because he's writing from a consciousness that we don't have. He's already in that extremely high consciousness. But you can get glimpses. And every time you read, it opens your consciousness. A joy that drags not sorrow as its shade. For these she yearns and feels them destined hers. Heaven's privilege she claims is her own right. Just is her claim the all-witnessing God's approve. Clear in a greater light than reason owns. Our intuitions are its title deeds. So these are the things that Savitri yearns for and is aspiring for. And here the narrator hints that her intuition was absolutely spot on because these are the things that do come to her. So she prays to invisible forms of gods. What most she needs, what most exceeds her scope, a mind unvisited by illusions gleams, a will expressive of soul's deity, a strength not forced to stumble by its speed, joy that drags not sorrow as its shade. For these she yearns and feels them destined hers. Heaven's privilege she claims as her own right. Just is her claim, the all-witnessing gods approve. Clear in a greater light than reason owns. Our intuitions are its title deeds. Please note, he now changes from the singular to the plural. Our intuition, not her intuitions. So in a sense, this is a general comment on the things that we intuitively feel that we are going to realize or have a strong intuition that it is something that we can do. Actually, those intuitions are approved by our higher destiny, the all-witnessing gods approve. Our intuitions are its title deeds. So to what we think we become, what we imagine we can do. But if you don't even have an aspiration for it, or you don't have any imagination, then you are very much like the worm and the clod that sticks to the earth and only can reach as far as you can think. So here, our intuitions are its title deeds. Our souls accept what our blind thoughts refuse. So sometimes the thought and reason say that this cannot happen. I cannot reach that place or that state or that experience. But our souls accept what our blind thoughts refuse. Earth's winged chimeras are truth's steeds in heaven. So earth's winged chimeras are these winged, what is the exact meaning of this word? Like winged imaginations, the thought. Imaginations. So here, earth's winged chimeras are truth's steeds in heaven. They're actually the horses. Steeds are stallions, really strong, and they represent light and power and realization. Are truth steeds in heaven. So earth's winged chimera, so what we think and what we imagine and what we aspire for, our winged chimeras are actually truth's steeds in heaven. That's why it's so important to harness the power of imagination in a positive way, for realization, not in a negative way. So if our thoughts are negative, then our reality around us becomes negative. And there is a deep truth in that. So here is again this one line that completely lifts us out of the ordinary consciousness and takes us to the new consciousness, which is the impossible God sign of things to be. So what is impossible today to us is a sign from God of what will happen tomorrow. So the impossible God sign of things to be. But few can look beyond the present state. But however, Ashwapati continues speaking and says, narrator, but few of us can look beyond what is in front of our nose. We see reality as it is presently known, and we can't imagine that a new world can be there, present, that is waiting to descend. We can't imagine that there would be new beings and that man would be like the animal is to man would be to the Superman, and that there would be immortality and that the body would be constantly renewed. We can't imagine that there would be a time when there is no death and there is no disease. So we are stuck to this mortal way of looking, this very earthly way, from the earth's sense. We are stuck to our outer senses and our material body and very physical, stupid brain, which only sees what is right in front of it and cannot conceive of what is not. And even if it can imagine it, it cannot accept it as real and as possible. It sees it as something that is, yes, it's there, it's wonderful, but, is it really going to happen? Is it really true? So there's this always element of doubt in the physical mind, in everything. So this element of doubt in the physical mind spoils the work. So the mother was very, 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 very particular and persistent in pointing out this physical mind and its workings to the sadhaks. And she kept saying, be conscious of how your physical mind negates every aspiration and everything that you consider to be true, and negates my yoga, negates my work. Be conscious and work and let that physical mind open to this inner light of consciousness, this divine presence, what the Earth Mother herself is opening herself to. And this is not only the yoga of the human consciousness, it is the yoga of the Earth. So the Earth consciousness is also doing this yoga. So it's not individual. It's not something that is defined to you alone, or it's not even, it has nothing to do with us. It's a whole evolutionary yoga. So it helps us to understand that these are the principles on which the yogic or the transformation has to proceed, earthly and individual. So earth's winged chimeras are truth's steeds in heaven, the impossible God's sign of things to be. But few can look beyond the present state or overleap this matted hedge of sense. This matted hedge of sense. Wonderful description of the way that the senses work. All our 6 or 7 senses work like matted, bunched up, not transparent. So, or overlook this matted hedge of sense. So go beyond the senses. All that transpires on earth and all beyond are parts of an illimitable plan. What is illimitable? Yeah. So, any other meanings of illimitable? Are parts of an illimitable plan the one keeps in his heart and knows alone. So this plan is what the one is with a capital O, which means the divine, the omniscient keeps in his heart and knows alone. Our outward happenings. This is again another one of those wonderful sentences that maybe one can write several books on, and is a mantric sentence. These are mantras in the middle of Savitri's that he keeps scattering, like seeds. So this is another mantra like the impossible God's sign of things to be. Another one is, our outwards happenings have their seed within. So everything that happens to us in our life, outside of us, has their seed within. So it's not something just by chance that is happening to you. So if whatever is happening to you, if you can be conscious, more and more conscious, you will see that it has its seed in your soul, and that is something that your soul has called for your own growth and for the evolutionary growth. So our outward happenings have their seed within. And even this random fate that imitates chance, this mass of unintelligible results, are the dumb graph of truths that work unseen. So here, wonderful, wonderful sentences and wonderful mantric knowledge, secret knowledge. This is why this chapter is titled The Secret Knowledge. Again, wonderful. So these are things you should actually know by heart. So at moments of crisis, these sentences leap into the mind and illumine the thought and help us to go beyond and overleap the senses, the outer circumstances. So the one keeps in his heart and knows alone. Our outward happenings have their seed within, and even this random fate that imitates chance, this mass of unintelligible results we don't understand, events we don't understand, are the dumb graph of truths that work with unseen, the laws of the unknown. Now this unknown is a capital U, so it's not unknown in the normal sense of the word. The laws of the unknown create the known. The events that shape the appearance of our lives are a cipher of subliminal quiverings, which rarely we surprise or vaguely feel are an outcome of suppressed realities that hardly rise into material day. So the events, the laws of the unknown create the known, and even the events that shape our lives, the appearances of our lives, are a cipher. What is a cipher? Yeah, so are a cipher of subliminal quiverings, a cipher. So get the exact word meaning out, you'll get to understand what he's trying to say here. So in this sense,
It's a code.
it's a code.
Cipher is a code.
So here it means the events that shape the appearance of our lives are a cipher of subliminal quiverings. They're a code of subliminal quiverings which rarely we surprise or vaguely feel. They're actually already things that are in our subconscious, subliminal. They're already there. It's a code. So the events that shape the appearance of our lives are a cipher of subliminal quiverings which rarely we surprise or vaguely feel are an outcome of suppressed realities that hardly rise into material day. So many things that we see as events outside us, we are unconscious, but they are our suppressed realities that are at the subliminal level are operating, which come out without our knowing into manifest as our outer reality, as events. So in a sense, we are the creator of our everyday events. Whatever happens to us is somewhere created by us at some level, or at least has some sort of reality at some level of our being which we have allowed. So there is a thing that if there is no vibration in you of any kind, nothing can touch you. So if there is no vibration of fear, then robbers and thieves and even the worst kind of criminals or things cannot touch you. So there's no vibration of, well, they could be. So, if you look at this kind of way of looking at things and reality, you understand why certain things happen only to certain people and not to others. This is a very deep psychological truth. We can mourn our reality, but there is some part of us that dwells on something. That's why the mother was very, very conscious, and she kept telling the children and all the people there, do not read newspapers. Do not watch television. Do not watch things that bring your consciousness down. Do not dwell on things that are dark and subversive. Why? Because those things will, even though you have forgotten them consciously, because you have dwelt on them, they will work at the subliminal level of your consciousness, the subconscious level, and you will attract those events to you. Have you heard of that? Why do rapes happen only to certain people? I mean, these are horrifying things to say, but you see, you have to understand the psychology behind things. How conscious are you in pushing away things when you see there's a dark energy in front of you? Whether it's or illnesses even. Yes, everything. But yeah. The thing is that it's other people also. That's why she said, never be in the company of those who constantly are emphasizing the negative. This is going to happen to you, or you are ill, you better go to the doctor and get yourself checked up. Something's happened to your blood pressure or your blood, something's going to happen to you, this kind of, and have you noticed how women, especially women and even men, I suppose, how people tend to take a lot of interest in knowing what illness they had, and then how they went to that doctor, and then they got cured, and then what happened to them in hospital, and they'll spend hours talking about it. And the other person is listening, thinking in their head, this happens to me, then I'll know what to do. But not realizing that you're creating a groove, like a record in your being for that to happen. So mother used to say, and I'm at least very conscious of that, if I hear anybody speaking of nonsense like this, I walk out of the room. Or I tell them, please don't speak in front of me. You can speak afterwards or I'm leaving. So you decide you want to have this conversation now, you don't want to have it. So you can ask her how many times I've walked out of conversations like that. Absolutely. So the mechanism of why it happens and is outlined here, the process, in a poetic, but it's a deeply psychological thing. But the important thing is also to apply it to oneself and also to see how it changes the way one needs to educate one's child, and why parents don't allow children to watch random television or keep, the child might be sleeping and you have some very dark things happening on television. You should never allow that, because it's not that you're sleeping. You switch it off. So, in the same way, why mothers, when they're pregnant, or even, have beautiful music, or why you have flowers in a room, or why do you have beauty rather than ugliness. So, these things impact the consciousness at a very deep level. And those who have been brought up in a very cultured and a very thoughtful way, have much less work to do in terms of understanding these things. But even if one had to watch a film, the mother would not allow. She started films in the ashram so that she could decide. She watched the film first and then decided with the ashramites and the children could watch it. The school children obviously went to watch it, and she wouldn't allow people to go to the cinema hall. And so someone asked her, but why? We're just going to see a film. She said, no, because there is so many energies. You're so unconscious as yet. You're unformed that you will pick this up and it'll get into your subconscious. So we pick up a lot of things from the environment which we are unconscious about, which we need to become more and more conscious. Yeah. So here it is. Let me read this so you will understand. Outward happenings have their seed within, and even this random fate that imitates chance, this mass of unintelligible results, are the dumb graphs of truths that work unseen. Even all of this random fate, what we think is just chance, that this is just by chance that this has happened to me. Even these are actually a dumb graph of truths that work unseen. The laws of the unknown create the known. So what are these laws of the unknown? Create the known.
So everything that is happening around us is somewhere on our path, which is being...
So who creates your path?
The divine, the Almighty has created a path for all of us.
So here Sri Aurobindo is saying the opposite. He's saying that you create your path. Your soul creates your path. You, which you don't know about because it's covered by your five senses. Five senses are your hearing, sense, feeling and touch. Cover your real destiny because you don't realize that you are creating your own destiny. And therefore, it is not something that is created, but that you are the co-creator, and therefore all your outward happenings have their seed within. That means that you cannot say that, this isn't my destiny, the God has created this, so this has happened to me. In a sense, you have chosen to create your own destiny, and you have chosen to create your own path. But you are so unconscious. The more unconscious you are, the more you will suffer, because you will not know that you have created it. Because the senses, you see, is written here very clearly, all that transpires on earth and all beyond are parts of an illimitable plan. But he says, but few can look beyond the present state or overleap this matted hedge of sense. So before that, what is he saying? That our souls accept what our blind thoughts refuse. Earth's winged chimeras are truth's steeds in heaven, the impossible God's sign of things to be. But few can look beyond the present state or overleap this matted hedge of sense. All that transpires on earth and all beyond are parts of an illimitable plan the one keeps in his heart and knows alone. Our outward happenings have their seed within, and even this random fate that imitates chance, this mass of unintelligible results, are the dumb graph of truths that work unseen. The laws of the unknown create the known. The events that shape the appearance of our lives are a cipher of subliminal quiverings which rarely we surprise or vaguely feel are an outcome of suppressed realities that hardly rise into material day. They are born from the spirit's sun of hidden powers, digging a tunnel through emergency. But who shall pierce into the cryptic gulf and learn what deep necessity of the soul determined casual deed and consequence? But who shall dig? Who shall pierce into the cryptic gulf? So to be able to pierce into the cryptic gulf, one has to go beyond the matted hedge of sense. Sense is the five senses or six senses or whatever you want to call them. And that can only be done through the becoming conscious of one's psychic being, because the psychic being is the leader of one's life. It is the soul. It is the individual spark of the divine in you, what you call as the Atman or the Chaitya Purush. So the Chaitya Purush is what can see. It can learn and it can become conscious of one's own choices that have created one's own life and one's destiny. A lot of people are there who blame circumstances. This has happened to me, that one has done this, I'm in such a bad state. But that blaming and that sense of rancor and unrest and sadness, that comes because of one's unconsciousness, because one is unconscious of one's true reality. If one became conscious of one's true reality, one could change one's destiny, also. Create a different path, change the circumstances, change the outcomes of events, but also one would understand why something is happening to you. And it is only nature's way of making you conscious that pushes you towards circumstances that are difficult so that you wake up. So that
in a way, the divine is guiding the soul, right? It's the outward circumstances that is our choice, that we choose to wake up to that or we choose to go down with it. But somewhere the divine is already guiding our soul, and he's kind of chartered a progressive path for...
only thing is that in Sri Aurobindo's yoga, the divine is not outside of you. It's inside you.
It's not outside of you. So it's kind
Your
of
psychic,
a part,
it's your psychic
being.
being.
The soul is
Yeah,
in you.
yeah.
And if we were to look beyond the matrix and hedge of sense and look inward, then you would follow that.
Then you would be able to know why things are happening and what you've chosen to do. And you could change your destiny and you could create a new destiny. Or you could have the choice of responding in the way you want. You would be equanimous or at least understand. So all those things happen, yeah. So that hardly rise into material day. They are born from the spirit sun of hidden powers, digging a tunnel through emergency. But who shall pierce into the cryptic gulf and learn what deep necessity of the soul determined casual deed and consequence? So here deep necessity of the soul is a reference to the psychic being. Who will go? Who will be able to know their psychic, know their inner calling, the inner deep necessity of the psychic being that has determined casual act, deed and consequence? So normally we are absorbed in a routine of daily acts. You see, all of us, we are busy with the outer life. Absorbed in a routine of daily acts, our eyes are fixed on an external scene. We hear the crash of the wheels of circumstance and wonder at the hidden cause of things. Yet a foreseeing knowledge might be ours if we could take our spirit stand within. If we could hear the muffled daemon voice. What is this muffled daemon voice? Voice of the psychic, voice of the Chaitya Purush, the voice of the Atman, the inner voice. So, yet a foreseeing knowledge might be ours if we could take our spirit stand within, if we could hear the muffled daemon voice. Too seldom is the shadow of what must come cast in an instant on the secret sense. Too seldom is the shadow of what must come cast in an instant on the secret sense, which feels the shock of the invisible, and seldom in the few who answer give. The mighty process of the cosmic will communicates its image to our sight, identifying the world's mind with ours. Our range is fixed within the crowded arc of what we observe and touch and thought can guess, and rarely dawns the light of the unknown, waking in us the prophet and the seer. So, because our range is fixed within the crowded arc of the outer life and the outer being, of what we observe and touch and thought can guess, the five senses, rarely dawns the light of the unknown, waking in us the prophet and the seer. Therefore, the prophet and the seer, which is hiding and is asleep in us, rarely does that wake up. But all of us, the psychic being is the prophet and the seer. All of us have the prophet, that knows the future, and the seer, that can see beyond the physical senses. We have that within us, but they don't wake up because of the external life that we are leading. But when we go within, in deep hours of solitude and quietness, when we are deeply alone with ourselves, we do hear intimations of realities. We do get a sense and foreshadow of what is going to happen to us, what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. But that only comes when we are absolutely able to go within, deep within us in solitude, not otherwise. So, the mighty process of the cosmic will communicates its image to our sight, identifying the world's mind with ours. Our range is fixed within the crowded arc of what we observe and touch and thought can guess, and rarely dawns the light of the unknown, waking in us the prophet and the seer. The outward and the immediate are our field. The dead past is our background and support. Mind keeps the soul prisoner. We are slaves to our acts. Mind keeps the soul prisoner. Who keeps the soul the prisoner? Mind keeps the soul prisoner. We are slaves to our acts. Very important. Don't forget, we are reading the secret knowledge. So this here, everything is revealed, the whole of Savitri. The real knowledge that is in here. In Sri Aurobindo's Yoga, the secret of our lives, how to act, everything is revealed here. That's why we are going slow on this, It's packed with knowledge. The mighty process of the cosmic will communicates its image to our sight, identifying the world's mind with ours. Our range is fixed within the crowded arc of what we observe and touch and thought can guess, and rarely dawns the light of the unknown, waking in us the prophet and the seer. The outward and the immediate are our field. The dead past is our background and support. Mind keeps the soul prisoner. We are slaves to our acts. We cannot free our gaze to reach wisdom's sun. So we have to be able to free our gaze from the outer life, from the outward gaze, from our actions, from our daily life, to be able to reach wisdom's sun. We cannot free our gaze to reach wisdom's sun. Inheritor of the brief animal mind, man. Who is the inheritor of the brief animal mind? Man. Still a child in nature's mighty hands. In the succession of the moments lives. So how do we live? We live from moment to moment. In the succession of the moments live. To a changing present is his narrow right. His memory stares back at a phantom past. The future flees before him as he moves. He sees imagined garments, not a face. Armed with a limited, precarious strength, he saves his fruits of work from adverse chance. So human beings, we are all armed with a limited, precarious strength. And he saves his fruits of work, which is, to do with his wealth and whatever he earns, from adverse chance. A struggling ignorance is his wisdom's mate. So what is his wisdom's mate? A struggling ignorance is his wisdom's mate. He waits to see the consequence of his acts. So first we act and then we wait to see what is the consequence of our acts. He waits to see the consequence of his acts. He waits to weigh the certitude of his thoughts. He knows not what he shall achieve or when. None of us know what we will achieve or when we will achieve. It just happens. Or end like the mastodon and the sloth. So what is that? He knows not whether at last he shall survive or end. Whether he will live or end like the mastodon and the sloth and perish from the earth where he was king. He is ignorant of the meaning of his life. Who is ignorant? We are. He is ignorant of the meaning of his life. He is ignorant of his high and splendid fate. Only the immortals on their deathless heights, dwelling beyond the walls of time and space, masters of living, free from the bonds of thought. Only the immortals, who are overseers of fate and chance and will, and experts of the theorem of world need, can see the idea, the might that changed time's course. So only the immortals, who are overseers of fate and chance and will, and experts of the theorem of world need, can see the idea with a capital I, the might that changed time's course. Come maned with light from undiscovered worlds, can see the idea, the might that can change time's course, come maned with light from undiscovered worlds. Here, while the world toils on with its deep blind heart, the galloping hooves of the unforeseen event, bearing the superhuman rider, near and impassive to earth's din and startled cry, return to the silence of the hills of God. As lightning leaps, as thunder sweeps, they pass and leave their mark on the trampled breast of life. So only these immortals who can see the idea and might and change time's course come maned with light from undiscovered world. These immortals come maned with light. This is imagery of the horse again. Mane is the hair, the mane of the horse. So they come maned with light. You can see them coming down. These immortals come maned with light from undiscovered worlds. Here, while the world toils on with its deep, blind heart, the galloping hooves. And these immortals can hear the galloping hoofs of the unforeseen event. They know what is going to happen. The galloping hooves of unforeseen event, bearing the superhuman rider. So these unforeseen events, the hooves, they can hear that the unforeseen events which bearing the superhuman rider. Now the superhuman rider with a capital R. What is this? There's some reference here. Do you know? Bearing the superhuman rider, near and impassive to earth's din and startled cry, return to the silence of the hills of God. So they hear this, so the immortals can hear, they know, they can see what is going to happen. They can see the unforeseen events which we don't know happen in front of them, and see the rider that is actually the driver of these events. So the rider here is a reference to the driver or the impeller of these, cause of these events. And then when they see all that, bearing the superhuman rider, near and impassive to earth's din. Impassive means not concerned, like without any, to earth's din and subtle cry, return to the silence of the hills of God. So they come with these events and then they go back without getting disturbed or concerned about what's going on here in the din and cry. So whatever the response, for example, the immortals must have known when these terrible wars took place, or even what is going on today in Ukraine. These things are foreshadowed, and this foreshadow is available to those who are open to these planes. And they've seen it, and these riders of this event, they must have seen it, and they've seen them coming back. But it's not that they are participating or getting disturbed or getting emotional. They just see it and go back. So these are the immortals only can do that. Those that have that vision. So I think what Sri Aurobindo here is trying to say is that above the world creators stand. In the phenomenon see its mystic source. They heed not the deceiving outward play. They turn not to the moment's busy tramp, but listen with the still patience of the unborn for the slow steps of far destiny, approaching through huge distances of time, unmarked by the eye that sees effect and cause. What he's trying to say is that when there is a plane of consciousness where the immortals live and reside, and those of us who can go to that plane of consciousness can then foresee all the events that are about to take place. I mean, people have remarked when he wrote The Ideal of Human Unity and so on, that how prophetic he was. Who? Sri Aurobindo was, when in his writing that almost 50 to 100 years later, those events started taking place, some of them. He had already seen the seed of those events and was writing about them. And I think the President of America, he said, oh, this must have just been written. He said, no, this was written, 40, 50 years ago. And Woodrow Wilson. And he sent his daughter, and daughter came after reading that to the ashram to meet the mother. What I'm trying to say is that those who have this consciousness, that's what he's trying to indicate here, can see and know everything. What they call is Trikala Drishti, but even more than that, they can change destiny. They know what is going to happen. For example, Sri Aurobindo foresaw what was going to happen in the World War II. He knew that Hitler was going to conquer, was going to send his things into England, and he already had prepared Churchill and already had prepared the fog so that those ships could not bomb England. Because if England had been captured by Hitler, the world destiny would have changed. We would have gone back, he says, 1,000 years in evolution, because he would have just run over the whole earth. And he saw who Hitler represented, the great Asura. So now this kind of consciousness, that is what he's describing here. The immortals know that. And we can also, if we reach that plane, have intimations of that consciousness. Yeah, Churchill would open. He was an instrument. He had the intimation. I'm guided by a power. He said, I feel there's something in someone guiding me. In the open parliament, it's in the records of the British Parliament. Okay. Above the world creators stand. In the phenomenon, see its mystic source. These heed not the deceiving outward play. They turn not to the moment's busy tramp, but listen with the still patience of the unborn for the slow footsteps of far destiny, approaching through huge distances of time, unmarked by the eye that sees effect and cause, unheard mid the glamour of the human plane. So as you know, Sri Aurobindo was watching the World War events on the wall of his room, like we are watching television today. But he didn't need the instrument. He didn't need television to do so. He was watching them as everything happening in front of him. So this is how he can write like this. Approaching through huge distances of time. This one line gives you that wonderful, that he was doing this. Approaching through huge distances of time, unmarked by the eye that sees effect and cause, and unheard mid the clamor of the human plane. Attentive to an unseen truth, they seize a sound as of invisible augur wings, voices of an unplumbed significance, mutterings that brood in the core of matter's sleep, In the heart's profound audition they can catch the murmurs lost by life's uncaring ear. So in the heart's profound audition they can catch the murmurs lost by life's uncaring ear, and a prophet's speech in thought's omniscient trance. Above the illusion of the hopes that pass, behind the appearance and the overt act, behind the clockwork chants and vague surmise, amid the wrestle of force, the trampling feet, across the cries of anguish and of joy, across the triumph, fighting and despair, they watch the bliss for which earth's heart has cried on the long road which cannot see its end, winding undetected through the skeptic days, and to meet its guide, the unheedful moving world. So I almost feel he's writing this maybe at the time of World War. It's amazing the way, the words he's using: across the triumph, fighting and despair, across the cries of anguish and joy, amid the wrestle of force, the trampling feet. The words, they watch the bliss for which earth's heart has cried on the long road which cannot see its end, winding undetected through the skeptic days, and to meet its guide, the unheedful World War I. And to meet its guide, the unheedful moving world. He came back and revised a lot of these chapters after. Yeah, World War II he was definitely... the last thing he was writing was Savitri till 1949 he wrote. He revised the whole of Savitri from 1940 to 49. He revised large parts of Savitri. He was writing. So when you go to the archives, you can find out when he wrote. That you'll know only when you sit down with the manuscript. But I'm just saying it feels like that. Thus will the masked transcendent mount his throne. When darkness deepens, strangling the earth's breast, and man's corporeal mind is the only lamp, as a thief's in the night shall be the covert tread of one who steps unseen into his house. A voice ill heard shall speak, the soul obey, a power into mind's inner chamber steal, a charm in sweetness, open life's closed doors, and beauty conquer the resisting world. The truth light capture nature by surprise. A stealth of God compel the heart to bliss, and earth grow unexpectedly divine. In matter shall be lit the Spirit's glow, in body and body kindled the sacred birth. Night shall awake to the anthem of the stars. The days become a happy pilgrim march. Our will, a force of the Eternal's power, and thought, the rays of a spiritual sun. A few shall see what none yet understands. God shall grow up, while the wise men talk and sleep. For man shall not know the coming till its hour, and belief shall be not till the work is done. So this is how the masked transcendent, masked means disguised. The divine in his disguise shall enter into earthly life, matter and body and mind. So, and it is when it is the darkest time that this happens. It's not when there is light. This when he steals in quietly, when there is only darkness all around. So this is again part of the secret knowledge that Sri Aurobindo is revealing through the narrator voice. And he's saying that basically that the divine is the masked transcendent in earth that is shaping and creating his own reign. And this is the truth towards which evolutionary earth and humanity are swiftly moving, even though all around seems to be the absolute negation of this. For man shall not know the coming till its hour, and belief shall be not till the work is done. a consciousness that knows not its own truths, a vagrant hunter of misleading dawns, between the being's dark and luminous ends, moves here in a half-light that seems the whole. An interregnum in reality cuts off the integral thought, the total power. It circles or stands in a vague interspace, doubtful of its beginning and its close. So this consciousness that knows not its truth moves here in a half-light that seems the whole, an interregnum in reality, reality with a capital R, cuts off the integral thought, the total power. It circles or stands in a vague interspace, doubtful of its beginning and its close, or runs upon a road that has no end, far from the original dusk, the final flame. In some huge void in conscience it lives, like a thought persisting in a wide emptiness. As if an unintelligible phrase suggested a million renderings to the mind, it lends a purport to a random world, a conjecture leaning upon doubtful proofs, a message misunderstood, a thought confused. Missing its aim is all that it can speak, or a fragment of the universal word. It leaves two giant letters void of sense, while without sanction turns the middle sign, carrying an enigmatic universe, as if a present without future or past, repeating the same revolutions whirl, turned on its axis in its own inane. Thus is the meaning of creation veiled, for without context reads the cosmic page. So thus is the meaning of creation veiled because of this consciousness that is in the interspace. It is the interregnum between reality and the inconscious. So this consciousness that does not know its own end, does not see fully, does not know fully, and is not aware of its original dusk or final flame, is the responsible for the message misunderstood, thought confused, missing its aim is all that it can speak, or a fragment of the universal word, is responsible for this unintelligible or lack of understanding or purpose of the world. So, we continue. While without sanction turns the middle sign, carrying an enigmatic universe, as if a present without future or past, repeating the same revolutions whirl, turned on its axis in its own inane. So it leaves two giant letters void of sense. So what do you think these two giant letters are? Look at Narendra's context here. But I would imagine that it is it only, because the next line it says, it leaves two giant letters void of sense, while without sanction turns the middle sign. So obviously, it is doing something to the middle part, not to the beginning and the end. So, if there is a reference to what exactly that means, but the sense is that this consciousness is unaware of its origin and its end, its meaning, where it has come from, the origin of the consciousness, where the superconscient, and is also unaware of its evolutionary end, that is the purpose for which it is here. It only knows the middle sign, which is the earth. Earth is the middle sign, and therefore it turns around in this unintelligible way, not knowing, half conscient, being part of the unconsciousness of earth, and therefore it leaves two giant letters void of sense, while without sanction turns the middle sign, carrying an enigmatic universe, as if a present without future or past, repeating the same revolutions whirl, turned on its axis in its own inane. So it continues the same, what should I say? It perpetuates the same reality or the same unconsciousness that it is, its nature, its prakriti. So unlike, it doesn't realize why, from where it has come, this consciousness, neither does it know where it is going. And therefore it just continues to whirl around its own axis in an inane, repetible way. If you see life as it is repetitive. And you don't see that it really changes, Everything by the end, it changes a bit and then it comes back. So because of this unconsciousness embedded in matter, and this consciousness that is right now on earth does not have its fullness, has not grown aware of its aim or its goal, or its origin or its goal, both. Do you have a specific reference?
Not a specific, there is a comment by the mother on all the lines.
Not explaining, okay.
The giant letter. It is basically what she's saying. This is the world as it seems to the eyes of an ignorant vanity that lives without knowing, sees without understanding, and is cut off from its origin. The why of all this is hidden, and unless it is discovered and lived consciously, life will always be an incoherent horror. But we are here to discover, to know, and to live. And we can bear the horror with the certitude that the light, the knowledge, and the purpose will be one day manifested. With patience and firmness and quiet assurance, we must go on, we must endure, and we must realize.
So the two letters are the letters of beginning and end, the origin and the goal. I think Sri Aurobindo is speaking in a very metaphoric way. So now that we understand the sense, let's continue. Thus is the meaning of creation veiled, and because of this, the meaning of creation is veiled. For without context reads the cosmic page. Its signs stare at us like an unknown script, as if appeared screened by a foreign tongue or code of splendor, signs without a key, a portion of a parable sublime. It wears to the perishable creature's eyes the grandeur of a useless miracle, wasting itself that it may last a while, a river that can never find its sea. It runs through life and death on an edge of time. A fire in the night is its mighty action's blaze. This is our deepest need, to join once more what now is parted, opposite and twain, remote in sovereign spheres that never meet, or fronting like far poles of night and day. We must fill the immense lacuna we have made, re-wed the closed finite's lonely consonant with the open vowels of infinity. A hyphen must connect matter and mind, the narrow isthmus of the ascending soul. We must renew the secret bond in things. Our hearts recall the lost divine idea. Reconstitute the perfect word. Unite the Alpha and the Omega in one sound. Two giant letters, the Alpha and the Omega in one sound. So there he is, he's explaining it. Reconstitute the perfect word, unite the Alpha and the Omega in one sound, then shall the spirit and nature be at one. Two are the ends of the mysterious plan. In the wide, signless ether of the self, in the unchanging silence, white and nude, aloof, resplendent like gold dazzling suns, veiled by the ray no mortal eye can bear, the spirits bear in absolute potencies, burn in the solitude of the thoughts of God. A rapture and a radiance and a hush, delivered from the approach of wounded hearts, denied to the idea that looks at grief, remote from the force that cries out in its pain. In his inalienable bliss they live, immaculate in self-knowledge and self-power. Calm they repose on the eternal will. Only his law they count and him obey. They have no goal to reach, no aim to serve. Implacable in their timeless purity. All barter or bribe of worship they refuse, unmoved by cry of revolt and ignorant prayer. They reckon not our virtue and our sin. They bend not to the voices that implore. They hold no traffic with error and its reign. They are guardians of the silence of the truths. So here, The spirits bear in absolute potencies, which are veiled by the ray no mortal eyes can bear, which we cannot bear to see or experience, burn in the solitude of the thoughts of God, a rapture and a radiance and a hush, delivered from the approach of which is there, which know from the approach of wounded hearts, denied to the idea that looks at grief, remote from the force that cries out in its pain. In his inalienable bliss they live. Who lives? So they live in this remote, what should I say? Inalienable bliss they live.
Be in absolute potencies, I think.
Yeah, the spirits bear in absolute potencies. If you look at there, remote from the force that cries out, in his alienable bliss they live, immaculate in self-knowledge and self-power, calm they repose on the eternal will. Only his law they count and him obey. They have no goal to reach, no aim to serve. Implacable, and they do not listen to any prayers. They reckon not about our virtue. They are not concerned about a human prayer, virtue, sin, human life, human barter or bribe of worship they refuse. Unmoved by cry of revolt and ignorant prayer, they bend not to the voices that implore. They hold no traffic with error in its reign. They are guardians of the silence of the truth. They are keepers of the immutable decree. A deep surrender is their source of might, a still identity, their way to know. Motionless is their action, like a sleep. Even their action is motionless like a sleep. At peace, regarding the trouble beneath the stars, deathless. You can just imagine these powers that are above the universe and are looking down and are guiding and yet implacable, are not influenced. They are deeply surrendered to the truth. To what truth? The silence of the truth. And they act in a way that is like a sleep. Motionless is their action, like a sleep. At peace, regarding the trouble beneath the stars. Deathless, watching the works of death and chance. Immobile, they're not even moving. Immobile, seeing the millenniums pass, not just the centuries, but the millenniums pass, untouched, while the long map of fate unrolls. They look on our struggle with impartial eyes, and yet without them, cosmos could not be. So they look upon our troubles with impartial eyes, and yet without them, the whole cosmos could not be. There would be no universe, no cosmos, the planets, the earth, the different life forms and mind forms. Impervious to desire and doom and hope. They're impervious to desire and doom and hope. So here is Sri Aurobindo revealing to us that secret knowledge in the whole way that, from the origin of consciousness or truth or of silence or of whatever word you want to call it, to the whole ladder of life, mind, matter, inconscience, and then of course above superconscious and the different gods and the earth goddess, then above that the transcendent, and above the transcendent something else that is which is upholding everything. So this is the huge, mystery and knowledge that he is revealing, and it is in a sense mystic. It is not and cannot be understood by the mind alone or by the reason. You would need a higher intuitive power to even understand these words, and each time we read it, something more is revealed. It doesn't stop revealing its true meaning, at just one go. It's not flat reading. It's something that as our consciousness develops, we begin to understand these lines better. And the more our consciousness develops, the more our understanding and experience and intuitive sense of these lines grows. So do not imagine that what we are reading today is what you will understand of it if you read it in a week or a month's time. So moveless upholds the world's enormous task. Its ignorance is by their knowledge lit. Whose ignorance? The world's ignorance is lit by their knowledge. Its yearning lasts by their indifference. So its yearning lasts by their indifference. As the height draws the low ever to climb, as the breadths draw the small to adventure vast, their aloofness drives man to surpass himself. So if they were not aloof, if they were not implacable, man could not surpass themselves. So it's their aloofness that drives man to surpass himself. Our passion heaves to wed the eternal's calm, our dwarf search mind to meet the omniscient's light. Because they are there. We have innately an innate knowledge that there is something like this. And this drives our aspiration and our passion and our search for something that is beyond ourselves. If this was not there, there would be nothing that we would be looking toward to realize or to understand or to experience. Our passion heaves to wed the eternal's calm, our dwarf search mind to meet the omniscient's light, our helpless hearts to enshrine the omnipotent's force. Acquiescing in the wisdom that made hell and the harsh utility of death and tears, acquiescing in the gradual steps of time, careless they seem of the grief that stings the world's heart, careless of the pain that rends its body and life. Above joy and sorrow is that grandiose walk. They have no portion in the good that dies, mute, pure, they share not in the evil done, else might their strength be marred and could not save. For if they were to share and partake of human life or human deeds or grief or joy, then else their strength would be marred, would be limited, would be stained. Else might their strength be marred and could not save, and they would not be able to save humanity or save the cosmos and the world and the universe. Alive to the truth that dwells in God's extremes, so joy and grief, death and life, pain and joy, all the extremes of life. Alive to the truth that dwells in God's extremes, awake to a motion of all-seeing force, the slow outcome of the long, ambiguous years, and the unexpected good from woeful deeds, the immortal sees not, as we vainly see. Their way of seeing is completely different from the way we perceive things. He looks, the immortal looks, on hidden aspects and screened paths. He knows the law and the natural line of things, undriven by a brief life's will to act, unharassed by the spur of pity and fear. He makes no haste to untie the cosmic knot or the world's torn, jarring heart to reconcile. In time he waits for the eternal's hour, yet a spiritual secret aid is there. In time, so he waits for the eternal's hour in time, yet a spiritual secret aid is there, while a tardy evolution's coils wind on and nature hews her way through adamant, a divine intervention thrones above. So there is yet a secret aid, a secret help that is there, and which is like a divine intervention, thrones above. Nature hews her way through adamant. So while the tardy evolution, tardy is of course slow, very, very slow, time-bound, and, coils wind out, spiral, going in, up and down, and nature hews her way through adamant, a divine intervention thrones above. Alive in a dead rotating universe, we whirl not here upon a casual globe. Abandoned to a task beyond our force, even through the tangled anarchy called fate, and through the bitterness of death and fall An outstretched hand is felt upon our lives. This is the intervention of the divine grace. So here again, Sri Aurobindo, through the narrator's voice, every time there is this sense of grace that he keeps bringing into Savitri's narration. At each point he says that even though fate is cruel and there is all of life that is a tardy evolution's coil and nature hews her way through adamant, and there is, death and pain and suffering and so on, yet he says, a divine intervention thrones above, and alive in a dead rotating universe, we whirl not here upon a casual globe. Though fate seems almost unseeing and chance and necessity seem to be the masters of earthly evolutionary forces, yet he says, we are not whirling upon a casual globe, abandoned to a task beyond our force. Even through the tangled anarchy called fate, and through the bitterness of death and fall, an outstretched hand is felt upon our lives. It is near us in unnumbered bodies. This hand is near us in unnumbered bodies and births. In its unslackening grasp, it keeps for us safe the one inevitable supreme result. No will can take away and no doom change. The crown of conscious immortality. That is the supreme result which no doom can change and no will can take away. The crown of conscious immortality. And what is this one inevitable supreme result that no doom change or no will can take away? It is the crown of conscious immortality. So here again, Sri Aurobindo is very clearly stating the aim of earthly evolution and earthly life. This earth life, whatever it may seem on the surface, the goal is unshaken, and there is always the intervention of the divine hand that ensures that every step, even though it may not appear to be so, is a step towards that goal of conscious immortality. Now, immortality cannot be unconscious, because it is something that only when you gain full consciousness are you aware of the fact that you are immortal and that you are the soul that is going from birth to birth, from body to body, from life to life, and so on. So, an outstretched hand is felt upon our lives. So this outstretched hand that he refers to, the mother has spoken a lot about it in her talks, about this outstretched hand which is always there for each of us, even individually in our lives. If we are aware of it and if we call for its help, but it's also there both individually and as a cosmic phenomenon. So it's not only there for individual souls, but it's also there for the collective soul of mankind, which is the earth life. And you can call it by many names: supreme grace, the hand of grace, the psychic soul being, which is the divine part in us, which is in touch with that supreme grace. So, the one inevitable supreme result, no will can take away and no doom change, the crown of conscious immortality, the Godhead promised to our struggling souls when first man's heart dared death and suffered life. One who has shaped this world is ever its Lord. Our errors are his steps upon the way. He works through the fierce vicissitudes of our lives. He works through the hard breath of battle and toil. He works through our sins and sorrows and our tears. So, one who has shaped this world is ever its Lord. That's very important. The Lord of the earth, the Lord of life, is the one that has shaped this world. Our errors are His steps upon the way. He, that Lord, that has shaped the world, works through the fierce vicissitudes of our lives. He works through the hard breath of battle and toil. We think it is we, the ego, that works through, but actually it is the divine Lord seated in our heart, which is the divine power, the conscious immortality that actually is working through all of us in our lives. He works through the hard breath of battle and toil. He works through our sins and sorrows and our tears. His knowledge overrules our nescience, our unconsciousness, our inconscience. His knowledge overrules our nescience. Whatever the appearance, we must bear. Whatever our strong ills and present fate, when nothing we can see but drift and bale, a mighty guidance leads us still through all. So whatever the appearance that we must bear, whatever may be the outside ground reality of our lives, whatever the circumstances that we are, brought in front of, whatever our strong ills and present fate, whatever could be the darknesses, the ills and our present fate, when nothing we can see but drift and bale. This is a very famous poem that Sri Aurobindo writes, a bit of that. You can see that part here. When nothing, do you remember which poem I'm just referring to? An Invitation. So, His knowledge overrules our nescience. Whatever the appearance we must bear, whatever our strong ills and present fate, when nothing we can see but drift and bale, a mighty guidance leads us still through all. So this is the supreme solace, the supreme reassurance that Sri Aurobindo is giving us. And please note, it is in the Canto 4, the secret knowledge. This is why this Canto is called the secret knowledge. This is the knowledge that is the secret knowledge, which actually is the knowledge that has been preserved and hidden in even the Vedas, if you notice. This is the knowledge that He's brought out in the English language beautifully and much more clearly than in any other scripture. So, whatever the appearance we must bear, whatever our strong ills and present fate, when nothing we can see but drift and bale, a mighty guidance leads us still through all. After we have served this great divided world, God's bliss and oneness are our inborn right. After, please note, we have served this great divided world, God's bliss and oneness are our inborn right. A date is fixed in the calendar of the unknown, an anniversary of the birth sublime. Our soul shall justify its checkered walk. All will come near that now is naught or far. All will come near that now is naught or far. So whatever we can't achieve, whatever we can't see, whatever we can't realize, will one day, at an unknown calendar, which is marked already, fixed date, fixed in the calendar of the unknown, and unknown is with a capital U, so not unknown in the ordinary sense of the meaning of the word, in the unknown, which is the divine's calendar. So a date is fixed in the calendar of the unknown, an anniversary of the birth sublime. Our soul shall justify its checkered walk. All will come near that now is naught or far. These calm and distant mights shall act at last. So these calm and distant mights is a reference back to those soul forces and potencies, the supramental Godheads. These calm and distant mights shall act at last, immovably ready for their destined task. The ever-wise compassionate brilliances await the sound of the incarnate's voice, to leap and bridge the chasms of ignorance and heal the hollow, yearning gulfs of life and fill the abyss that is the universe. Here, meanwhile, at the Spirit's opposite pole, in the mystery of the deeps that God has built, for His abode below the thinker's sight, in this compromise of a stark absolute truth, with the light that dwells near the dark end of things, in this tragic comedy of divine disguise, this long, far seeking for joy ever near, in the grandiose dream of which the world is made, in this gold dome on a black dragon base, the conscious force that acts in nature's breast, a dark-robed laborer in the cosmic scheme, carrying clay images of unborn gods, executrix of the inevitable idea, hampered, enveloped by the hoops of fate, patient trustee of slow eternal time, absolves from hour to hour her secret charge. However, he says here, meanwhile, at the Spirit's opposite pole, what is the Spirit's opposite pole? What is the opposite of a spirit? Matter. Here, meanwhile, at the Spirit's opposite pole, in the mystery of the deeps that God has built, what has God built? Life and matter and earth. In the mystery of the deeps that God has built, for His abode below the thinker's sight, thinker with a capital T, in this compromise of a stark absolute truth, with the light that dwells near the dark end of things, in this tragicomedy of divine disguise. What is the tragicomedy of divine disguise? Life. So it's like a tragedy and a comedy, and it's a disguise of the divine, because the divine is acting here and is present here, disguised and not visible. So in this compromise of a stark absolute truth, with the light that dwells near the dark end of things, in this tragicomedy of divine disguise, this long, far seeking for joy ever near, in the grandiose dream of which the world is made, in this gold dome, so this gold dome on a black dragon base is an imagery of the gold dome, which is the highest pinnacle of immortality, and the dark dragon base is the inconscience, the unconsciousness, the darkness on which this gold dome is sitting on. This is a wonderful image that Sri Aurobindo uses here. In the grandiose dream of which the world is made, in this gold dome on a black dragon base, the conscious force that acts in nature's breast, a dark-robed, what is this conscious force? A dark-robed laborer in the cosmic scheme, carrying clay images of unborn gods, executrix of the inevitable idea, hampered, enveloped by the hoops of fate, patient trustee of slow eternal time, absolves. So who is the patient trustee of slow eternal time? It is the conscious force that is working in nature's breast, in earth, as a dark-robed laborer in the cosmic scheme. What is it called? The Prana Shakti or the Paraprakriti, or the dark-robed laborer is, we are, by force of nature, we all have to toil. There's toil and work in everything in life. Nothing, whether it's a plant or a human being or a machine, everything has to keep working. So this dark-robed laborer, this is the imagery of the laborer, of the worker, that is dark-robed because it is hidden. And this conscious force is hidden in this. And that's why it's dark-robed. So because of its hidden nature, it's only you see the outside, that this toiling and this suffering and this work, but you don't see who it is. The inhabitant is not seen. So whether it's the Gita that says, where Sri Krishna says, it is I who am the worker and the work, the sadhak and the sadhana. Or it is, Sri Aurobindo's, the mother's words, where she says that it is not you who work, it is I who is working through you. So, whatever the different images you can think of, but this is again one more, where Sri Aurobindo is explaining how this conscious force acts in nature's breast as a dark-robed laborer in the cosmic scheme, carrying clay images of unborn gods, executrix of the inevitable idea, hampered, enveloped by the hoops of fate, patient trustee of slow eternal time, absolves from hour to hour her secret charge. So, all she foresees in masked imperative depths, the dumb intention of the unconscious gulfs, answers to a will that sees upon the heights, and the evolving world's first syllable, ponderous brute sensed, contains its luminous close, privy to a summit victory's vast descent, and the portent of the soul's immense uprise. And you just imagine how Sri Aurobindo can write like this, just the imagery, the words, the content, the thought. It's almost like he's seeing things and he's, dictating something that he's experiencing. Very difficult to fully understand, but you can get a sense of it. So, let's read it again, the last bit. Executrix of the inevitable idea, hampered, enveloped by the hoops of fate, patient trustee of slow eternal time, absolves from hour to hour her secret charge. So who absolves from hour to hour her secret charge? Yeah, the conscious force. So this is the conscious force is Prakriti is the unconscious force, and Para Prakriti, which is the Divine Mother in creation, is the conscious force. So now you understand what he is referring to here. So all she foresees in masked imperative depths, all she foresees everything in the masked imperative depths. So everything is masked, but she can foresee it. The dumb intention of the unconscious gulf. So she can also know and foresee the dumb intention of the unconscious gulfs, answers to a will that sees upon the heights in the evolving word's first syllable. I wonder what that means, evolving words. First syllable, Om. The evolving words first, because the creation began with the word, and the first word was Om. So here is a reference to that. Answers to a will that sees upon the heights, and to the evolving word's first syllable, ponderous, brute-sensed, contains its luminous close, privy to a summit victory's vast descent, and the portent of the soul's immense uprise. So the first word also is the final word and contains in its seed the whole potency of the whole key to the uprising of the soul's immense uprise. So it's a very mystical imagery that he's used here. A little difficult for the thinking mind to understand, but if you can sense it, it gives you a feeling of what he's trying to say. So he's talking about something so immense that all of nature, all the world mother, he's talking about something as great as that, and this is in the secret knowledge. So what is he trying to tell us? What is the essence of the knowledge that he's giving us here? What is he saying in simple words?
That it's always the outstretched hand, divine intervention, or whatever.
One is, I think, that
Lord
immortality.
of the creation that is working through evolution.
Okay, that's one thing that he
One is
says.
that there'll definitely be immortality. Secondly, that the guiding hand is helping us evolve and teaching.
Yeah, that he was saying earlier. What is he saying here? Here he's saying something else. Here he's saying, what is he saying right here, which I've just finished reading?
There was a great descent, and which is and the journey towards the uprise, potent uprise. And there is a conscious force which is hidden, walking through it, and is aware of it at all times, but is hidden. It sees in the descent also, because it was the witness, it was guiding, privy to the summit's victory's vast descent, but at the same time is aware that there is a soul's immense surprise there. And the dumb intentions of the unconscious girl, through the dumb intentions of the unconscious girls also, it's like it's moving up.
Yes, you have a sense of it. Basically, what Mother says, these words, Holocaust of the Mother. Have you heard these words? The Holocaust. So the Holocaust of the Mother is the divine conscious force, which is, you can call in any name, whether you call it the Mother, you call the Divine, you call the Supreme, or you call the All Wisdom, that has entered into matter, has entered into the darkness of creation, and is the real, what should I say, the suffering is held and is hers. And she has consented and consciously done this to bring back to consciousness all of life and earth that is unconscious. So it is this divine holocaust that is the reason why the conscious force is evolving out of matter and darkness. And that is how the soul's uprise can take place. This is the imagery he's talking about, the Prakriti and Para-Prakriti. If you look at even in the Vedas or in the Sanskrit, that these are the words that are best described, because Sanskrit is a much more precise language for these sort of spiritual matters than English is. English, of course, Sri Aurobindo has evolved so many new words, but this is the juxtaposition that he is describing here. That is why there is always this divine outstretched hand and also this very clear goal toward conscious immortality. Otherwise, how would that be? Unless that conscious force was here, already involved, could it evolve? You can't get something out of nothing. There has to be something involved for it to evolve. So that is what he is alluding to. So it's a new vision and it's a new way of looking at life that he is presenting, but which we can't hold for more than 5 seconds. Because our instrument is not attuned to that. We are too much in the old consciousness. All here where each thing seems its lonely self are figures of the soul transcendent one. Only by him they are, his breath is their life. An unseen presence molds the oblivious clay, a playmate in the mighty mother's game. One came upon the dubious whirling globe to hide from her pursuit in force and form. A secret spirit in the inconscient sleep, a shapeless energy, a voiceless word. He was here before the elements could emerge, before there was light of mind or life could breathe. Accomplice of her cosmic huge pretense, his semblances he turns to real shapes and makes the symbol equal with the truth. So this soul transcendent one, he was here before the elements could emerge, before there was light of mind or life could breathe. Soul transcendent one is actually all here where each thing seems its lonely self. Is the soul transcendent one. These are figures of the soul transcendent one, that is an unseen presence that molds our oblivious clay, meaning matter, and who is a playmate in the mighty mother's game. One came upon the dubious whirling globe to hide from her pursuit in force and form. So this is a hidden presence, an unseen presence, a secret spirit in the inconscient sleep. So this is all a description of this soul transcendent one is a hidden presence and molds matter and came before the light of mind or life could breathe. It was before all the elements everything. And this is a secret spirit in the inconscious sleep. It is from there, a shapeless energy, a voiceless word. He was here before the elements could emerge, before there was light of mind or life could breathe. Accomplice of her cosmic huge pretense. His semblances he turns to real shapes and makes the symbol equal with the truth. He gives to his timeless thoughts a form in time. He is the substance, he the self of things. She has forged from him her works of skill and might. So this is a wonderful description of Purusha Prakriti, or the transcendent one, and the executrix force, which is the nature force in the higher realms called Paraprakriti, in the lower realms of human life and world, Prakriti. So this is the eternal one that is a one in two or the two in one. And that is what Sri Aurobindo and the Mother keep saying, that actually it is the one in indivisible energy that has two forms. One is the static form, that is the one transcendent one, that is an unseen present hidden in matter, and from where everything emerges. And one is the executrix, the one that is formed is the cosmic ignorance or the cosmic play or Maya or whatever word you want to call it, or Prakriti or Paraprakriti. That mother's force, that is the executrix nature force, that, and therefore they are actually two in one, or one in two. Now it's difficult for you to understand that mentally, but actually there is no difference between the two. They've just taken on two different roles, like in a play. So this is the description here. He was here before the elements could emerge, before there was light of mind or life could breathe, accomplice of her cosmic huge pretense. Who is her here? Is the mother, the mother nature, whatever word you want, the executrix. What he refers to is here as, and then again where is the executrix word? So that, or the mother's force, whatever you want to call it. His semblances he turns to real shapes and makes a symbol equal with the truth. He gives to his timeless thoughts a form in time. He is the substance, he the self of things. She has forged from him her works of skill and might. She wraps him in the magic of her moods and makes of his myriad truths her countless dreams. The master of being has come down to her, an immortal child born in the fugitive years. So this immortal child that is the master of being has come down to nature, to the mother's world, to this force. It is entered into everything. An immortal child born in the fugitive years, in objects wrought, in the persons she conceives, dreaming she chases her idea of him. In objects wrought in the persons she conceives, dreaming she chases her idea of him, and catches here a look and there a jest. Ever he repeats in them his ceaseless births. He is the maker and the world he make. So ever he repeats in them his ceaseless birth. So this immortal child that is born here is constantly from birth to birth, keeps on repeating. Ever he repeats in them his ceaseless. It is he that is born in all, and he that is the substance of all things created here, and he that is the form of all things created here. There is nothing but him. It is his force, and which is camouflaged, hidden, and veiled, and that is why he can go on from birth to birth and from millennium to millennium continuing. So once we realize that actually, there is a famous in the Upanishads, there is this thing that there is only one, there is no two. In the sense that actually say, all here where each thing seems its lonely self are figures of the sole transcendent one, that only by him they are, his breath is their life, an unseen presence molds the oblivious scape. So this is the play. This is what is called Maya. This is what is called creation. There's only one. And that is why we even in between Yajnavalkya and his wife, what is his wife's name? I can't remember. But anyway, when this conversation between them took place about who one loves, does one love you or does one love oneself? And he turned around and said, no, I only love one, and that is myself. It is because of me that I love you. And then she thought it from you can interpret it from the human angle or you interpret it from the spiritual angle. Obviously, Yajnavalkya was a great sage and he didn't mean it in the human egoistic sense. He meant it in the true sense of what is it that one loves and what is love. So these are very deep, profound conversations, in the Upanishads that are, sort of, what should I say? You can see their glimpses in the way that Sri Aurobindo has written Savitri. So, his semblances he turns to real shapes and makes the symbol equal with the truth. He gives to his timeless thoughts a form in time. He is the substance, he the self of things. She has forged from him her works of skill and might. She wraps him in the magic of her moods. And when you understand this he and she, you think they're two separate, but they're not. That is how you say one in two, two in one, two in one. That is how he could have replied like this to his wife, because there is no distinction, there is no difference. That one, if once one is in touch with that, then there is something else that takes over. There is the ego and the outside human relation gets transformed. Now, the thing is that when somebody asked the mother, that is there any difference between you and Sri Aurobindo? She said no. We are one. We are two forms for the work, for the play, for the evolution that have come down, but actually the consciousness is one. So when one realizes one's psychic being, which is that soul, that is what he speaks of here, the master of being has come down to her, an immortal child born in the fugitive years, in objects wrought in the person she conceives, dreaming she chases her idea of him, and catches here a look and there a jest. Ever he repeats in them his ceaseless births. He is the maker and the world he made. He is the vision and he is the seer. He is himself the actor and the act. He is himself the knower and the known, straight from the Upanishads. He is himself the knower and the known. He is himself the dreamer and the dream. So when you are conscious of this experience, this becomes a lived experience, not just poetry or a mental thought. When one is totally conscious and lives in the psychic consciousness, psychic being. It is the psychic being that brings you this awareness, this truth, very, very clearly. So, wonderful words here and wonderful experience. He is the maker and the world he made. He is the vision and he is the seer. He is himself the actor and the act. He is himself the knower and the known. He is himself the dreamer and the dream. They are two who are one and play in many worlds. In knowledge and ignorance they have spoken and met, and light and darkness are their eyes interchange. Our pleasure and pain are their wrestle and embrace. Our deeds, our hopes are intimate to their tale. They are married secretly in our thought and life. The universe is an endless masquerade. For nothing here is utterly what it seems. It is a dream fact, vision of a truth, which, but for the dream, would not be wholly true. A phenomenon stands out, significant, against dim backgrounds of eternity. So, for nothing here is utterly what it seems. The wonderful thing, the universe is an endless masquerade. Do you know what a masquerade is? A disguise. So an endless disguise. So when you've seen a masquerade is when you have a mask. and you are in a different guise than your real self. So when you go for these balls, which are where everybody dresses up, so the universe, he's saying, is the endless masquerade. So there are two who are one and play in many worlds. In many worlds. In knowledge and ignorance, they have spoken and met. And light and darkness are their eyes interchange. Our pleasure and pain are their wrestle and embrace. Our deeds, so wrestle would be the pain and embrace would be pleasure. So our pleasure and pain are their wrestle and embrace. Our deeds, our hopes, are intimate to their tale. They are married secretly in our thought and life. The universe is an endless masquerade. For nothing here is utterly what it seems. It is a dream fact, vision of a truth, which but for the dream would not be wholly true. If there wasn't the dream, this would not be true. So it is a dream fact vision of the true. But for the dream would not be wholly true. A phenomenon stands out significant against dim backgrounds of eternity. We accept its face and pass by all it means. A part is seen. We take it for the whole. So it reminds you of this elephant and the blind men. Each one touches one part of the elephant and says, this is the whole. And so the same way, we are the blind men. We are the ignorant, half-conscious beings who take the part as the whole. So we accept its face and pass by all it means. A part is seen, we take it for the whole. Thus have they made their play with us for roles. Thus have they made their play with us for roles. We are the actors or the puppets or the whatever. So thus have they made their play. Play is the entire universe. For us, for roles. We are the roles. We are the divine disguises, the masquerade. So this ball that we have, see, everything in the world is actually a reflection of a divine event. So that's why this great interest in disguise and theater and play that human beings have. Because somewhere in the depth of their consciousness, they know that this is all a play. It helps us to understand and detach from too close an identity with our outer selves. So, a phenomenon stands out significant against dim backgrounds of eternity. We accept its face and pass by all it means. A part is seen, we take it for the whole. Thus have they made their play with us for roles. Author and actor with himself is seen. So, what are the roles? Author and actor with himself is seen. So he is the scene, he is the author and the actor. He moves there as the soul, as nature, she. He moves there as the soul, as nature, she. Here on the earth, where we must fill our parts, we know not how shall run the drama's course, except the only difference between a drama or a theatre or a play that we stage, we know what the end is. But here with the divine as the author and the actor and the scene, human beings and human life, and all life in fact, not just human life, all life and all events have no idea the end of this place. They have no idea what's going to happen. We know not how shall run the drama's course. Our uttered sentences veil in their thought. Even our uttered sentences veil in their thought. Her mighty plan she holds back from our sight. She holds back. Her mighty plan. Please notice who's her, Her is a reference to the nature, Mother Nature. So, Prakriti. Her, but the higher Prakriti. Her mighty plan, because her with a capital H. So there immediately it's the mother's plan. So her mighty plan she holds back from our sight. She has concealed her glory and her bliss. Who has concealed? Mother Nature has concealed. She has concealed her glory and her bliss and disguised the love and wisdom in her heart. And disguised the love and wisdom in her heart of all the marvel and beauty that are hers. Only a darkened little we can feel. He too wears a diminished Godhead here. So it's not only she, but it says he too wears a diminished Godhead here. Here means on earth. He has forsaken his omnipotence His calm he has foregone, and infinity both. He has foregone his calm and infinity. He knows her only, he has forgotten himself. Please notice the non-capitalized her. He knows her only, not the capital her, but the small her. Who is the small her here? Prakriti, lower nature, outer nature. What we experience is the ego. So he knows her only, he has forgotten himself. To her, he abandons all to make her great. So to her he abandons, that's how he is also forsaken his omnipotence. He has become a slave of Prakriti, of nature. Not of the higher mother nature, but of the operative nature. So that's how he knows her only, he has forgotten himself. To her he abandons all to make her great. But why? To her he abandons all to make her great, to help her to evolve. He hopes in her to find himself anew. So in her he hopes to find himself anew. Incarnate, wedding his infinity's peace to her creative passion's ecstasy. Although he is the possessor of the earth and heavens, he leaves to her the cosmic management and watches all, the witness of her scene. A super nunnery on her stage. So he does this consciously. He leaves all to her cosmic managers, although he is the possessor of earth and the heavens. He leaves to her the cosmic management and watches all, the witness of her scene. A super nunnery on her stage. What is a super nunnery? Yeah. A super nunnery of her on her stage. He speaks no words or hides behind the wings. He takes birth in her world, waits on her will, divines her enigmatic gesture sense. The fluctuating chance turns of her mood, works out her meanings she seems not to know, and serves her secret purpose in long time. As one too great for him, he worships her. He adores her as his regent of desire. He yields to her as the mover of his will. He burns the incense of his nights and days, offering his life a splendor of sacrifice, a rapt solicitor for her love and grace. His bliss in her to him is his whole world. He grows through her in all his being's powers. He reads by her God's hidden aim in things, or a courtier in her countless retinue, content to be with her and feel her near. He makes the most of the little that she gives, and all she does drapes with his own delight. Of course, this is the 2-in-1 or the 1-in-2. Purusha Prakriti, Ishvara Shakti, the divine consciousness, in its executrix and its static witness self. So he makes the most of the little she gives, and all she does drapes with his own delight. A glance can make his whole day wonderful. A word from her lips, happiness wings the hours. He leans on her for all he does and is. He builds on her largesse his proud, fortunate days, and trails his peacock plumaged joy of life, and suns in the glory of her passing smile. In 1,000 ways he serves her royal needs. He makes the hours pivot around her will, makes all reflect her whims. All is their play. This whole wide world is only he and she. This last line, this whole wide world is only he and she. If you go and meditate on this line deeply, this can itself open up a complete new experience and a completely new perspective on how this world is created. It's just a simple line, but it says everything. The entire world, he says, is only he and she. That is the play, that is the manifestation, and that manifests. So it's a supreme consciousness in two modes. The Supreme as that is behind manifestation, and the Supreme that throws out its energy into manifestation and is called, what you call is the mother or the divine force or the divine Shakti or the executrix or the power that creates the world. So there are only two things, and the whole world is made of only he and she. There is nothing else. That means we don't exist, for example. Why? Who are we then? That means if the whole world is only he and she, then who are the human beings? He and she.
Part of the Prakriti.
Of the manifestation. So, but how is it that we are not aware of that? Ignorance, yes. What creates the ignorance? What creates unconsciousness? It is the principle of the ego that has been put into manifestation to create division between the lower, Purusha Prakriti, between that, the Supreme. So the divisiveness is created by the ego that is separated from its origin. And that, because we are separated from our origin, we don't know this. We don't operate like this. We operate like we are the center of the entire universe. So, he makes the hours pivot around her will, makes all reflect her whims. All is their play. This whole wide world is only he and she. This is the knot that ties together the stars. So what is the knot? This is the knot that ties together the stars. All the stars are tied together by this knot of the play between he and she, the two who are one, the one consciousness that is two. This is the knot that ties together the stars. The two who are one are the secret of all power. The two who are one are the might and right in things. His soul, silent, supports the world and her. His acts are her commandments, registers. Happy, inert, he lies beneath her feet. So even though his soul, silent, supports the world and it supports her, and his acts are her commandments, registers, yet he lies happy beneath her feet. He's not above her, he's beneath her. So it's a very interesting juxtaposition. There's no superior or inferior. Try and understand. He lies beneath her feet. His soul, silent, supports the world and her. His acts are her commandments, registers. Happy, inert. Inert means inactive, passive. He lies beneath her feet. His breast he offers for her cosmic dance. You see that lovely image of who is dancing? His breast he offers for her cosmic dance, of which our lives are the quivering theatre. So this cosmic dance, of which our lives are the quivering theatre. So we are the theatre for the dance, of her dance, on his breast. And none could bear this dance, this quivering cosmic dance, but for his strength within. Yet none could leave because of his delight. His works, his thoughts have been devised by her. See, the intermingling. His thoughts, his works have been devised by her. It is she who has devised his works and thoughts. His being is a mirror vast of hers. So he is a mirror of her. His being is a mirror vast of hers. Active, inspired by her, he speaks and moves. So even when he speaks, or if he ever speaks and moves, it is only because of her inspiration. Active, inspired by her, he speaks and moves. His deeds obey her heart's unspoken demands. Passive, he bears the impacts of the world as if her touch is shaping his soul and life. So he bears the full impact of the world, the grief, the suffering, everything in the world he bears, as if it is she who is touching his soul and life. His journey through the days is her sun march. He runs upon her roads. Hers is his course. a witness and student of her joy and dole, a partner in her evil and her good. He has consented to her passionate ways. He is driven by her sweet and dreadful force. So he is driven by her sweet and dreadful force. His sanctioning name initials all her works. His silence is his signature to her deeds. In the execution of her drama scheme, in her fancies of the moment and its mood, in the march of this obvious, ordinary world, where all is deep and strange to the eyes that see, and nature's common forms are marvel wefts, she, through his witness sight and motion of might, unrolls the material of her cosmic act, her happenings that exalt and smite the soul, her force that moves, her power, her powers that save and slay, her word that in the silence speaks to our hearts, her silence that transcends the summit word, her heights and depths to which our spirit moves, her events that weave the texture of our lives, and all by which we find or lose ourselves, things sweet and bitter, magnificent and mean, things terrible and beautiful and divine. Her empire in the cosmos she has built. He is governed by her subtle and mighty laws. His consciousness is a babe upon her knees. Just note, his consciousness is a babe, it's like a baby upon her knees. His being, a field for a vast experiment. Her endless space is the playground of his thoughts. She binds to knowledge of the shapes of time and the creative error of limiting mind, and chance that wears the rigid face of fate, and her sport of death and pain and nescience, his changed and struggling immortality. So this is a very important passage because it shows one very clearly how Sri Aurobindo has brought back into the light of truth a very ancient old concept and truth of the Upanishads and the Vedas, which has been very wrongly misinterpreted by scholars and later teachers. Because you see, if you read this passage, you will see that the two who are one and the one who are two are inseparable. There is no hierarchy. There is no sense of one being inferior than the other. While if you notice the way that our Pandits have interpreted our Shastras, there is always this sense that the Purusha is the one that sanctions the Shakti. And without the Purusha, the Shakti is not present. But the fact is that both are equal. That's why Mother was very, very different. She refused to use the words he and she. She's always say that why are you saying, actually in the original consciousness there is no he and she. But for our mind we don't understand it. So we have even put the feminine and the masculine gender. But actually this consciousness is the inseparable consciousness that divides itself for the work so that it can rejoin. So it's one consciousness. And therefore if you see the supramental being is sexless. There is no female or male. Because in the origin of all consciousness, there is no female and male. And the Mother in the agenda has often spoken very strongly about it, which very few people have understood. And it's a very important concept to bring back because I think deep in the cultural ethos of in our cultural ethos, especially in the West, strangely enough, more than the East, there is this sense of, Adam and Eve and the sin and the apple, and the sense of the feminine being in some form inferior, while in Sri Aurobindo's yoga, if at all, if one had to put any emphasis on it, it would be certainly equal, if not more elevated. I would say that this is an important understanding for us to have in the modern day world, and also to remember this when we are teaching our children. Because these are things that are so ingrained in our cultural consciousness which have to change if the world has to change. You see this whole concept of the primogeniture that the father gives to the son, the king gives to his only son and not to his daughters. The inheritance goes. So you see in every form, and the justification is, this is that comes from some source. So you'll see it permeating, whether it's to do with inheritance or money or will, or in every form of life. Even the last rites of your parents will be done. If you have a son, the son will do it, not the daughter. Now you see how this permeates, this one wrong concept has permeated into the whole of our culture. And this is some examples in Indian culture. In the Western culture, there are many, many more. That's even far more fraught with it. But why I'm bringing this out is that this whole chapter, The Secret Knowledge, talks about something that is beyond our mental capacity at present to fully comprehend. But there are glimpses of it. So try and find and develop this consciousness in yourself. So this is the very famous line that the mother wrote, "Without me, he is unmanifest. Unmanifest means he does, and without him, I exist not." So that means one without the other cannot create, cannot be. So the same thing, in this whole thing you will see he and she, this play of the consciousness. Actually, he and she is not to be taken in the masculine and feminine way. He and she is a way of explaining two different modes of action. One is a passive, inert, surrendered mode, and the other is an active, commanding mastery that the executive Shakti has. So the executive Shakti will act because he is surrendered and lying, on which she dances. So one cannot exist without the other. So this is important, that's why I'm stopping here to talk about this. So the Purusha is in each of us. The Chaitya Purush, why do you call it Chaitya Purush? Because it's a psychic being, that is the Purusha in you. And the Chaitya Purush is also, there's not only a Purusha in every being, there is a mental Purusha, there is a vital Purusha, there is a physical Purusha, there is a Purusha on all the parts of the beings also. And then there is a Chaitya Purusha, which is the, I think in Sanskrit, Manomaya, there are very different names of them. So the Purusha is also in each of us. The Purusha is an element in the whole universe. So he says the whole world is only he and she. So you understand what that is. But the she aspect is extremely important to understand. So what is the she aspect in you? If the he aspect is the Purusha, then what is the she aspect? It's Shakti. So where is the Shakti? The Supreme Shakti.
Why the cosmic force? Or
No.
they surrendered something?
No, it is not.
Purusha and
Who are
Prakriti exists
surrendered
in
to
all
the
of us. Purusha and Prakriti exists in all of us.
Yeah.
The yin and the yang.
Yeah.
And that's what I think somewhere Mother has written, a perfect human being is going to be a person who has
Full
both
balance.
a balance between the yin and the yang, or the
In full balance, yeah.
In
In
full
full
balance.
proportion and balance, yes. And then again, the universe is something that is been created by both the Purusha and the Prakriti together. Not one is this and one is that. So, if you read what we have just read again, you will understand the whole concept. The two who are one are the secret of all power. The two who are one are the might and right in things. His soul silent supports the world and her. His acts are her commandments registers. Happy inert, he lies beneath her feet. His breast he offers for her cosmic dance, of which our lives are the quivering theatre. And none could bear but for his strength within, yet none would leave because of his delight. His works, his thoughts have been devised by her. His being is a mirror, vast of hers. Active, inspired by her, he speaks and moves. His deeds obey her heart's unspoken demands. Passive, he bears the impacts of the world, as if her touches shaping his soul and life. His journey through the days is her sun march. He runs upon her roads, hers is his course, a witness and student of her joy and dole, a partner in her evil and her good. He has consented to her passionate ways. He is driven by her sweet and dreadful force. His sanctioning name initials all her works. His silence is his signature to her deeds. In the execution of her drama scheme, in her fancies of the moment and its mood, in the march of this obvious and ordinary world, where all is deep and strange to the eyes that see, and nature's common forms are marvel-less, she, through his witness sight and motion of might, unrolls the material of her cosmic act, her happenings that exalt and smite the soul, her force that moves, her powers that save and slay, her word that in the silence speaks to our hearts, her silence that transcends the summit word, her heights and depths to which our spirit moves, her events that weave the texture of our lives, and all by which we find or lose ourselves, things sweet and bitter, magnificent and mean, things terrible and beautiful and divine. Her empire in the cosmos she has built. He is governed by her subtle and mighty laws. His consciousness is a babe upon her knees, his being a field of her vast experiment. Her endless space is the playground of his thoughts. She binds to knowledge of the shapes of time and the creative error of limiting mind, and chance that wears the rigid face of fate, and her sport of death and pain and nescience, his change and struggling immortality. His soul is a subtle atom in a mass, his substance a material for her works. His spirit survives amid the death of things. He climbs to eternity through being's gaps. He is carried by her from night to deathless light. His grand surrender is his free will's gift. His pure transcendent force submits to hers. In the mystery of her cosmic ignorance, in the insoluble riddle of her play, a creature made of perishable stuff, in the pattern she has set for him he moves. He thinks with her thoughts, with her trouble his bosom heaves. He seems the thing that she would have him seem. He is whatever her artist will can make. Although she drives him on her fancy's roads, at play with him as with her child or slave, to freedom and the eternal's mastery, and immortality stand above the world. She moves her seeming puppet of an hour, even in his mortal session in body's house, an aimless traveler between birth and death, ephemeral dreaming of immortality. To reign she spurs him, he takes up her powers. He has harnessed her to the yoke of her own law. His face of human thought puts on a crown, held in her leash, bound to her veiled caprice. He studies her ways, if so he may prevail, even for an hour, and she work out his will. He makes of her his moment passion's serf. To obey she feigns, she follows her creature's lead. For him she was made, lives only for his use. But conquering her, then is he most her slave. He is her dependent, all his means are hers. Nothing without her he can do. She rules him still. At last he wakes to a memory of self. He sees within the face of deity. The Godhead breaks out and through the human mold. her highest heights she unmasks and is his mate. Till then he is a plaything in her game, her seeming regent, yet her fancy's toy, a living robot, moved by her energy springs. He acts as in the movements of a dream, an automaton stepping in the grooves of fate. He stumbles on, driven by her whip of force. His thought labors a bullock on time's fields. His will, he thinks his own, is shaped in her forge. Obedient to world nature's dumb control, driven by his own formidable power, his chosen partner in a titan game, her will he has made the master of his fate. Her whim the dispenser of his pleasure and pain. He has sold himself into her regal power, for any blow or boon that she may choose. Even in what is suffering to our sense, he feels the sweetness of her mastering touch. In all experience meets her blissful hands. On his heart he bears the happiness of her tread and the surprise of her arrival's joy in each event and every moment's chance. All she can do is marvelous in his sight. He revels in her, a swimmer in her sea, a tireless amateur of her world delight. He rejoices in her every thought and act, and gives consent to all that she can wish. Whatever she desires, he wills to be, the spirit, the innumerable one. He has left behind his lone eternity. He is an endless birth in endless time, her finite's multitude in an infinite space. Interesting. I got the name, the name of my horse, Multitude, I found in Savitri. I named him Multitude from here. The master of existence lurks in us and plays at hide and seek with his own force. In nature's instrument, loiter secret God. This is a reference to the human being, in the human person. The master of existence lurks in each one of us, he says. And in nature's instrument, that is, and who is the instrument of nature? The human instrument. That is the highest evolutionary instrument born today. So in each human being loiters secret God. In nature's instrument loiters secret God. The immanent lives in man as in his house. Immanent again is a reference to the Supreme. That is, lives in man as in his house. Now, very clear, very important lines to explain the one thing, that the divine presence is in each human being, and the master of all existence lurks in each of us and plays at hide and seek with his own force. However, he is playing with hide, and sometimes he's visible, sometimes invisible, and in nature's instrument loiters secret God. The immanent lives in man as in his house. He has made the universe his pastime's field, a vast gymnasium of his works of might. So the universe itself is his pastime's field, and it is like the universe is a vast gymnasium where of his works of might. All-knowing, he accepts our darkened state. Divine wears shapes of animal or man. So, all-knowing, he accepts our darkened state. Divine wears shapes of animal or man. Eternal, he ascends to fate and time. Immortal, dallies with mortality. Because he is immortal, he can play with mortality, with death. And because he is eternal, he can ascend to fate and time, which is both temporal. And divine, he can wear the shape of man or of animal. The all-conscious ventured into ignorance. So it is the all-conscious that is ventured into the ignorance. And that is how the ignorance can evolve back to all consciousness. The all blissful bore to be insensible. And the all blissful bore means it is a great burden when you're fully blissful, fully conscious, to become insensible. Become as unconscious as matter and stone. Incarnate in a world of strife and pain, he puts on joy and sorrow like a robe and drinks experience like a strengthening wine. He whose transcendence rules the pregnant vasts, prescient now dwells in our subliminal depths, a luminous individual power alone. So he whose transcendence rules the entire universe, prescient now dwells in us. He also prescient, present, he dwells in our subliminal depths, a luminous individual power alone. The Absolute, the Perfect, the Alone, has called out of the silence his mute force, where she lay in the featureless and formless hush, guarding from time by her immobile sleep the ineffable puissance of his solitude. The Absolute, the Perfect, the Alone, has entered with his silence into space. He has fashioned these countless persons of oneself. He has built 1,000,000 figures of his power. So here you see the repetition of the words. The Absolute, the Perfect, the Alone has called out of the silence. Then again, the Absolute, the Perfect, the Alone has entered with his silence into space. He has fashioned these countless persons of oneself. He has built 1,000,000 figures of his power. He lives in all who lived in his vast alone. Space is himself and time is only he. Wonderful description of that cannot be thought about. Space is himself and time is only he. The Absolute, the Perfect, the Immune. Immune is that is immutable. The Absolute, the Perfect, the Immune. One who is in us as our secret self, our mask of imperfection has assumed. He has made this tenement of flesh his own, his image in the human measure cast, that to his divine measure we might rise. Then in a figure of divinity, the Maker shall recast us and impose a plan of Godhead on the mortal's mold, lifting our finite minds to his infinite, touching the moment with eternity. This transfiguration, it's earth's due to heaven. This transfiguration is earth's due to heaven. A mutual debt binds man to the Supreme. His nature we must put on as he put ours. We are sons of God and must be even as he. His human portion we must grow divine. Our life is a paradox with God for key. But meanwhile, all is a shadow cast by a dream. But meanwhile, until that happens, all is a shadow cast by a dream. And to the musing and immobile spirit, life and himself don the aspect of a myth. And to the musing and immobile spirit, life and himself don the aspect of a myth, the burden of a long, unmeaning tale. For the key is hid. Which key? God's key. For the key is hid and by the inconscient kept. The secret God beneath the threshold dwells, in a body obscuring the immortal spirit, a nameless resident, vesting unseen powers with matter, shapes and motives beyond thought and the hazard of an unguessed consequence, an omnipotent, indiscernible influence, he sits, unfelt by the form in which he lives. So he is unfelt by the form, by the human form, matter's form in which he lives. An omnipotent, indiscernible influence, he sits unfelt by the form in which he lives, and veils his knowledge by the groping mind. A wanderer in a world his thoughts have made, he turns in a chiaroscuro of error and truth. What does that mean? I think it's something that light and shade. Okay. A wanderer in a world his thoughts have made, he turns in a chiaroscuro of error and truth to find a wisdom that on high is his. As one forgetting, he searches for himself, as if he had lost an inner light he seeks. As a sojourner lingering amid alien scenes, he journeys to a home he knows no more. His own self's truth he seeks, who is the truth. He is the player who became the play. He is the thinker who became the thought. He is the many who was the silent one. In the symbol figures of the cosmic force, and in her living and inanimate signs, and in her complex tracery of events, he explores the ceaseless miracle of himself till the thousandfold enigma has been solved in the single light of an all-witnessing soul. This was his compact with his mighty mate, for love of her and joined to her forever, to follow the course of time's eternity, amid magic dramas of her sudden moods, and the surprises of her masked idea, and the vicissitudes of her vast caprice. Two seem his goals, yet ever are they one, and gaze at each other over bournless time. Spirit and matter are their end and source. A seeker of hidden meanings in life's forms, of the great mother's wide, uncharted will, and the rude enigma of her terrestrial ways, he is the explorer and the mariner on a secret inner ocean without bourne. What is the meaning of this word, bourne here? B-O-U-R-N-E. On a secret inner ocean without bourne, he is the adventurer and cosmologist of a magic earth's obscure geography. In her material orders, fixed design, where all seems sure, and even when changed, the same, even though the end is left forever unknown, and ever unstable is life's shifting flow, his paths are found for him by silent fate, as stations in the age's weltering flood, firm lands appear that tempt and stay a while, then new horizons lure the mind's advance. There comes no close to the finite's boundlessness. There is no last certitude in which thought can pause, and no terminus to the soul's experience. A limit, a farness, never wholly reached. An unattained perfection calls to him from distant boundaries in the unseen. A long beginning only has been made. Yeah, so here in this bournless time, limitless time, and here again, without limit in the sense of, on a secret inner ocean without bourne. He is the adventurer and cosmologist of a magic earth's obscure geography. Two seem his goals, yet ever are they one. So who is this? What are we discussing here? What are we reading? He sits unfelt by the form in which he lives. This is the two in one, or the one in two. This is the supreme and, the supreme force that actually is both spirit and matter, and is both, is everything. It is he that is charting his course through. There it is he that is involved in everything. So, this is the sailor on the flow of time. This is world matter's slow discoverer, who launched into this small corporeal birth, has learned his craft in tiny bays of self. So, it is he who has launched into the small corporeal birth and learnt his craft in the tiny bays of self, but dares at last, unplumbed infinitudes, a voyager upon eternity's seas. In his world adventure's crude initial start, behold him ignorant of his Godhead's force, timid initiate of its vast design, an expert captain of a fragile craft. So in his world adventure's crude initial start, he was first ignorant of his Godhead's force, timid initiate of its vast design, an expert captain of a fragile ship, a trafficker in small, impermanent wares. At first he hugs the shore and shuns the breadths. So in the beginning he was more like all swimmers who don't know how to swim very well. They hug the shore and shun the breadths, dares not to affront the far-off perilous main. He in a petty coastal traffic plies, his pay doled out from port to neighbor port, content with his safe round's unchanging course. He hazards not the new and the unseen. But now he hears the sound of larger seas. A widening world calls him to distant scenes, and journeyings in a large vision's arc, and peoples unknown and still unvisited shores. On a commissioned keel, his merchant hull serves the world's commerce in the riches of time, severing the foam of a great landlocked sea to reach unknown harbor lights in distant climes and open markets for life's opulent arts, rich bales, carved statuettes, hued canvases, and jeweled toys brought for an infant's play, and perishable products of hard toil, and transient splendors won and lost by the days, or passing through a gate of pillar rocks, venturing not yet to cross oceans unnamed, and journey into a dream of distances. He travels close to unfamiliar coasts, and finds new haven in storm-troubled isles, or, guided by a sure compass in his thought, he plunges through a bright haze that hides the stars, steering on the trade routes of ignorance. His prow pushes towards undiscovered shores. He chances on unimagined continents, a seeker of the islands of the blessed. He leaves the last lands, crosses the ultimate seas. He turns to eternal things, his symbol quest. Life changes for him in its time-constructed scenes, its images veiling infinity. Earth's borders recede, and the terrestrial air hangs round him no longer its translucent veil. He has crossed the limit of mortal thought and hope. He has reached the world's end and stares beyond. The eyes of mortal body plunge their gaze into eyes that look upon eternity. A greater world time's traveler must explore. So you see, this is very akin to the way that human evolution has taken place. You see, in the history, in the beginning of 16th, man was very busy with the quest for the outer conquest, the outer discovery of continents, of lands, of roots, of the riches of what he calls the ignorance roots. So the outer conquest took over man's or the life's pursuits, and it was really the Godhead that was in man that was doing that, and it was pushing towards that. But soon man discovers, after he has conquered all and seen all and explored all and been everywhere, that there is something greater and beyond the material world, which is the new world of thought and beyond mind and beyond thought. And then he discovers the inner worlds and the higher worlds, which are beyond. So, in a sense, this is the journey of the Supreme through time that is being explored by Sri Aurobindo here and shared by him. So, it is the divine who is actually the impeller of all of this, not just what we think is so-called divine, but even in the most material pursuits, it is his energy and his presence and his guidance and his push that is taking us there. So he turns to eternal things, his simple quest. Life changes for him, its time-constructed scenes, its images veiling infinity. Earth's borders recede, and the terrestrial air hangs round him no longer its translucent veil. As he continues on and on and on, he goes to these higher planes. He has crossed the limit of mortal thought and hope. He has reached the world's end, and so this is also quite a clear description of the way that evolution is proceeding from the outer to the inner and then to the higher. Once the outer discoveries have all been completed, man will search for something else beyond. And it is the divine in man that is actually the impeller of that search. He has crossed the limit of mortal thought and hope. He has reached the world's end and stares beyond. The eyes of mortal body plunge their gaze into eyes that look upon eternity. So you have to read it in context of where it started. This is the sailor on the flow of time. This is world matter, slow discoverer, who launched into the small corporeal birth. Who launched into the small corporeal birth? So, launch into the small corporeal birth is a reference to the divine who has plunged into the human. Corporeal means material, physical birth. Body, into the body. And once he plunges into the body, has learned his craft in tiny bays of self, but dares at last unplumbed infinitudes, a voyager upon eternity's seas, in his world adventure's crude initial start. Behold him ignorant of his Godhead's force, timid initiate of its vast design, an expert captain of a fragile ship. And then he starts with the small things, and then he continues on slowly from the shores like an inexperienced swimmer to wider and wider experiences.
It seems to me also it is a reference to the psychic spark in the individual gradually coming into its own and becoming the psychic being, gaining strength, life to life, and venturing further and further.
Could be. Could also be that. It certainly is the divine presence that has gone into the human body.
You call it the psychic or you call it the divine
No,
presence?
at the collective level, what Anita is describing is the collective evolution, which of course is there. But also when it says into the corporeal, the tiny bits, for each individual, in our lives also, the first birth, the psychic is not developed. So this development of the psychic.
Also, I think even in the individual, we all start with things we know of, near to the far. So we slowly start exploring. First we start exploring our own environment, and then our own country, and then slowly abroad. So here, now he's gone beyond. The eyes of mortal body plunge their gaze into eyes that look upon eternity. A greater world time's traveler must explore. A greater world. So, time's traveler. Who's time's traveler? Man. A greater world, time's traveler must explore. At last he hears a chanting on the heights, and the far speaks, and the unknown grows near. He crosses the boundaries of the unseen and passes over the edge of mortal sight to a new vision of himself and things. He is a spirit in an unfinished world that knows him not and cannot know itself. The surface symbol of his goalless quest takes deeper meanings to his inner view. His is a search of darkness for the light, of mortal life for immortality. In the vessel of an earthly embodiment, over the narrow rails of limiting sense, he looks out on the magic waves of time, where mind like a moon illumines the world's dark. There is limbed, ever retreating from the eyes, as if in a tenuous, misty dreamlight drawn, the outline of a dim, mysterious shore. A sailor on the inconscious, fathomless sea, he voyages through a starry world of thought on matter's deck to a spiritual sun. Across the noise and multitudinous cry, across the rapt, unknowable silences, through a strange mid-world, under supernal skies, beyond Earth's longitudes and latitudes, his goal is fixed outside all present maps, but none learns whither through the unknown he sails. On what secret mission the Great Mother gave, in the hidden strength of her omnipotent will, driven by her breath across life's tossing deep, through the thunder's roar and through the windless hush, through fog and mist, where nothing more is seen, he carries her sealed orders in his breast. So, this is again a reference to the same 2 in 1 and the 1 in 2. He that has gone into the human world, he that has entered into matter, into everything, that he carries her sealed orders, but where he is going and what this divine presence's ultimate goal is something that he carries sealed in his breast. Even he doesn't know it. Late will he know, opening the mystic script, whether to a blank port in the unseen he goes, or armed with her fiat to discover a new mind and body in the city of God and enshrine the immortal in his glory's house and make the finite one with infinity. Across the salt waste of the endless years, her ocean winds impel his errant boat, the cosmic waters splashing as he goes, a rumor round him and danger and a call. Always he follows in her force's wake. He sails through life and death and other life. He travels on through waking and through sleep. A power is on him from her occult force that ties him to his own creation's fate, and never can the mighty traveler rest, and never can the mystic voyage cease, till the nascent dusk is lifted from man's soul, till the nascent, the darkness, the nascent's unconscious dusk is lifted from man's soul, never can the mystic traveler rest, and never can the mystic voyage cease. So the voyage from soul to soul of the divine presence, of the psychic presence, can never cease or rest. A power is on him from her occult force that ties him to his own creation's fate, and never can the mighty traveler rest, and never can the mystic void cease, till the nascent dusk is lifted from man's soul, and the morns of God have overtaken his night. As long as nature lasts, he too is there. For this is sure, that he and she are one. Even when he sleeps, he keeps her on his breast. Whoever leaves her, he will not depart. To repose without her in the unknowable, there is a truth to know, a work to do. Her play is real, a mystery he fulfills. There is a plan in the mother's deep world whim, a purpose in her vast and random game. This ever she meant since the first dawn of life. This constant will she covered with her sport, to evoke a person in the impersonal void, with the truth light strike earth's massive roots of trance, wake a dumb self in the inconscient depths, and raise a lost power from its python sleep, that the eyes of the timeless might look out from time, and the world manifest the unveiled divine. For this he left his white infinity, and laid on the spirit the burden of the flesh. For this he left his white infinity, and laid on the spirit the burden of the flesh, that Godhead seed might flower in mindless space. End of Canto 4. So this is the secret knowledge that Sri Aurobindo unveils in this canto, the whole purpose of evolution, nature, the supreme, and what is its end, what is the aim. So very clearly and beautifully described. It needs to be read over and over again. And then of course Canto 5 is the next canto, the yoga of the king, the yoga of the spirit's freedom and greatness. After he unveils a purpose for which this yoga has to be undertaken. So the purpose of the yoga is unveiled in the aim of the yoga, the purpose of the yoga is unveiled in this previous canto on the secret knowledge. And then the next canto describes the yoga itself, of how to reach there, that Ashwapati undertakes.